this statement will be never truer than any other time we're going to say this. Guys, the purpose of this show is not to sell you. It's not to try to get you to FOMO into a project. It is simply entitled to share the knowledge that we have amassed, and to give it to you guys to be able to do what you want with it. We always say do your own research. This is a show about doing research. Literally, that's what we're doing. That's what we're here for. So hopefully you guys like what we're coming up with today. XRP, let's take it away.
Guys, I want to say welcome to the XRP episode of Utility Unlocked. This is a show where we focus on one utility asset a week based on whatever you guys vote at the end of these lives. And we try to explain to you guys the utility, the use case, the integrations, the history, the pros, the cons of these assets with the perspective of long-term investing. I'd like to start off with kind of, as I always do, kind of just explaining to you guys the simplest way I can of what is this asset actually trying to do. So here comes XRP. XRP is essentially just trying to move money more efficiently, right? It's focused on payments. Before you can actually focus on what the crypto is, you have to understand what is the friction point in our actual, financial system today. So a lot of people think when we send a payment, you send it, you receive it, and that's it, right? You get the money right away, but that's not actually how money actually moves through our financial system. When you send a payment, a bank has to upgrade its ledger, another bank has to upgrade their ledger, and then there's a bunch of middlemen and middle systems in the middle that are holding on to that value until it actually gets settled and reconciled later. So we have a big problem in our current financial system. Payments take days, they're very expensive, and they're almost very inefficient, and there's a risk that comes with it because it could take 3 to 5 days for some payments to actually settle. So XRP comes in with this mindset of can we move money more efficiently, quickly, and cheaper? So the XRP Ledger, right? This is essentially kind of the meat and potatoes for it. It was designed specifically for payments. It's a public network where people can move value very quickly, very efficiently, and transparently. XRP is not coming in to replace your dollars. It's meant to kind of help the dollars move. And the way that it's doing it is through they're simply calling it a bridge asset. It's a bridging mechanism. One of the ways that they do this, a clear example that I could maybe give you guys is if you're trying to send money from the United States to Japan, usually you have to have US dollars in the United States, you have to have Japanese yen on the other side, and then there's banks in the middle that are holding on to that money just in case of failure, right? And that money that's sitting in between the two is that money is idle, that money's stagnant, that's parked funds. Those are called pre-funded accounts, right? Those are the nostro vostro accounts. And they cost a lot of money for the banks to kind of maintain it while that money is kind of stagnant. So XRP comes in, they convert the dollars on the United States side into XRP. They move the XRP across the network in seconds, and then they convert that XRP back into yen on the other side. What's very important for you guys to understand about the way that this payment system is set up is that XRP is held for seconds, right? It's held very briefly. It's not something that you're holding on to for a long time. So a bridge asset is bridging value between two different forms of money without the need of pre-funded liquidity. Do you guys have anything you'd like to add on top of that?
That's well said.
Okay, so XRP on the XRP Ledger, right? How does XRP actually function on the network? XRP is very simple. It has a very simple job. It's used to pay transactions. It's used to prevent fraud on the network, and it's also fuel to the actual engine, right? It's gasoline to the actual engine. It's helping the value move efficiently across the system. XRP is not meant to be held long term. It's not meant to be held as an investment strategy for these institutions. They have a different perspective of this asset than the way retail is viewing it. It's infrastructure, and your infrastructure is not behaving the same way that your speculative assets would, right? It's actually behaving like plumbing. We can get into it a little bit later, but it's basically XRP is a digital asset that helps money move very quickly between different currencies and very drastic jurisdictions as well.
Yeah. So I would just say that if it's all right, can we focus on, I think this comes up a lot, right? Ripple's Ripple and XRP's XRP, or, there's this common misconception when it comes to Ripple and XRP. I think it's important to note that the XRPL was built before Ripple was.
Yeah. So just on that note, to do a little more of a deep dive on that, uh, as you said, it predates the XRPL. A Canadian, Ryan Fugger, is the one who made Ripple Pay in the early 2000s. A peer to and what Ripple Pay was a peer-to-peer credit and payment network designed to move value without traditional banks. He is not the founder of Ripple Labs, the company, and he's not the creator of XRP, but he is the intellectual origin point of concept. And that concept was real simple. It was, what if trust itself was the money? So that's actually the genesis of where this all started. In 2010, 2011, Fugger was looking for, I love that name, was looking for a way to scale the idea. He began talking via online forums with Judd McCaleb, and we all know Judd. He's from Mt. Gox. Most of us know him from XLM. And Arthur Brito. These guys are the recognized co-founders of Ripple. Anything you guys want to add to that?
No, I think it's just
No.
very important to reiterate that the ledger came first before the company. That's very important to understand in terms when we look at compliance and regulations, right? The ledger came first, not the company.
Exactly. Yeah, and then originally the company that was built on top of it was called uh,
Open coin.
Newcoin, and then it was OpenCoin, and now we know it to be Ripple.
Yeah. So in 2011, I want everyone to know, like, we talk about these names, but to give it more context so people are really, well aware of what happened. In 2011, Jed brought on David Schwartz. David Schwartz was came to OpenCoin, or what was going to be OpenCoin, as a cryptography engineer. The design intent was Bitcoin without mining, a style consensus for fast settlement, low energy usage, positioned for payments. Until then, David was an independent engineer, a consultant. Schwartz built his career as a self-taught programmer and an independent consultant. His early work created on distributed systems, cryptography, network security, and a complex system design. And he's a named inventor on multiple US patents. So Jed knew who he was bringing on board.
I think it's important to kind of talk about, well, what was the need for the company, right? If this software, this technology had existed without the need of a company, then why bring on a company? Well, the software itself doesn't onboard institutions, right? You need somebody to sit in the boardroom, right? You need somebody to have a compliance team, ability to integrate in. There has to be accountability. There has to be, you know, there has to be an entity behind it where the company can build products, they can knock on the doors, they can sit in those boardrooms, and then they can actually onboard people. The software itself is not going to receive the adoption. You have this company that comes in, and they have to be the ones that are sitting down with these institutions to actually convince them to look into this technology. So that's why the company had developed.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think early on too, and I've made a video on this. It's probably one of my most popular ones, so I appreciate for the people that have seen it. But it's the MIT Technical Review article where they talk about all of the large investors that went on in with Ripple, or to fund and make Ripple. And essentially that would be, uh, Peter Thiel, Mark Andreessen, and a host of other individuals. So we know this, and the reason why I bring that up is because we always talk about, well, this company was created with the investment of Coinbase or with the investment of X and Y and Z. So you know we need to look and pay attention to who was backing it, who saw it back then as the potential that it could be, right? Because when these investors they're investing not in the short term, they're investing into the long term. And this was done, 2011, 2012. How long ago was that now? It's been a
Yeah.
while.
So just on that, be the change. So that's, you named a couple: Jesse Powell, co-founder of Kraken; Roger Ver, who some people might know him as Bitcoin Jesus, early investor in Bitcoin, Ripple, and Kraken and BitPay. SBI Holdings was not an early investor, but they came in pretty early. There were a bunch of other ones: Google Ventures, IDG Capital, which is a Chinese venture capital firm. Anybody who knows anything about China knows that's a big deal. Lightspeed Venture Partners in California. I think that was it for early venture capitals.
Do you guys want to discuss when the actual native token had been launched and the way that they had distributed the supply, things like that?
Absolutely. You guys want to start? Or you want me to do it?
Yeah. So when the XRP Ledger was created, 100 billion coins of XRP was also created. Right. There was no mining. There's this idea of no inflation, and they didn't want to create new supply. Right. The supply had been fixed from the start. And a large portion of the supply ended up with Ripple, right? And a lot of debates kind of go into the whole escrow unlocking and things like that. So instead of Ripple actually hiding the supply, they did something very unusual in crypto at the time of 2012. They locked a lot of their XRP into the ledger, right? And the way that I can kind of explain the ledger to the average person is it's almost like a time locked vault, right? Ripple puts XRP into that vault and they release 1 billion XRP per month. They do this on a predictable schedule so you can know when it's coming out, and all of that is public and visible on the ledger. A common misconception, I think, is people say that they're dumping on the market, right? Ripple doesn't automatically use all of that XRP. So a majority of the XRP that is released on the public market, 70 to 80% of that supply actually ends up going back. So they end up buying back about 70 to 80% of the supply. Whatever's not being bought up from the market, that demand, Ripple is taking that back. And then they lock that up for a couple of months. So the supply is on a scheduled release. The markets know when it's coming. And the unused supply doesn't just sit there flooding the market. And I think that that's also important to talk about. So they're putting the XRP back into escrow. That's not the same thing as XRP buying XRP on the open market, right? The escrow is there for the supply management. They're not actually making on market purchases of it.
Yeah, you're right. The reasons they're doing it is because of ODL, institutional settlement, and they hold it for strategic partnerships as well. One of those preconceived ideas is that they dump and that they're just like selling on us. And I really think that that's something we probably should talk about. Be the change. Do you have anything you want to say regarding that?
Yeah, so it is, it's pretty common, I would say, for people to think that, especially once you start kind of diving into it. I understand where that sort of thought process comes from. And caveman, you didn't see this, so I'm a little bit under the weather. I've been fighting this cold for a few days, so
Let me know. I'll take over.
yeah. But for me, what I have seen out of their transactions, and what the statements that they have made, because again, we have to realize here, right? Like we're talking about large sums of money, and we are talking about, that this organization is using its own, the people who invested into XRP. That can be further from the truth, just because of the simple fact that all of these partnerships, i.e. Hidden Row, GT Treasury, were done not only with Ripple, but with investment from other firms too as well. So the common misconception is, oh, they just sold all this XRP so that they could buy Hidden Road, so they could buy GT Treasury. But if you look at what the documents show and who and what the transaction was actually done, is that it was an investment from another company, i.e. Citadel, i.e. these other companies that are investing into it to partner to make these purchases happen. So it is Cantor Fitzgerald's also one of them too as well. So there's a lot that needs to be said, but you can't just say, oh well, they're acquiring and building these things. They're just using XRP for those for that expansion. You have to look and see who was a part of those deals in the first place. But you can continue on.
I would just say, like, to add to that, they're not adding, it's not inflationary. There's no new units being created. There is always and will always be 100 billion. They are releasing existing coins that they locked up in escrow to maintain a predictable price level, something institutions are going to need. The it does, like I said, it doesn't increase total supply, and it's operating on a fixed schedule. Remember, this isn't for you and me. This is for institutions. This is why they are operating the way they have, and will continue to do so. To think of it in like a term that people may understand, it's economically closer to a linear vesting model or a mechanism. It's a controlled liquidity distribution model. So for example, let's say you invest in something and you're going to be released your investment every year or month or quarterly. That's how they are doing it. Markets tend to price the known. Predictable supply is much more efficient than unknown issuance. So that's talking about that. The things we could probably mention as well is XRP burning and fees. XRP transactions include a very small fee. A standard burn transaction is like 0.5, is it 5 zeros? And 1 XRP. And this is for a base fee, which is also called 10 drops for XRP. One thing you guys should know though, larger or more complex operations can incur higher burn amounts, but these are defined by the protocol as needed, which obviously slightly reduces supply. So not inflationary, partially deflationary over time with use. Anything you want to add to that, guys?
If my numbers is accurate, I believe 32 million XRP had been burned. A drop in the bucket. I think when we're also looking at 2012, it's important to talk about another thing that a lot of people want to talk about is the missing blocks, right? So as of right now, the earliest publicly accessible ledger is at block number 32,000. I believe 32,000, and this goes back to 2012. And there was a technical issue. The network actually didn't retain the same data in the same way that it does today. So they had upgraded the infrastructure, the servers, and there was just early mistakes to it. And that's the downside to it. It is true. We can maybe have a conversation at the end of it whether or not it impacts its validity of the ledger. That's something you could talk about, but I think that you have to almost look at it whether from the institutional perspective, right? What do the institutions necessarily care about? They care about how it is functioning today, right? How is it being verified today? How is it being? How is the consensus models today? Does it work? I don't know if they necessarily need to have a perfect history. There's blocks missing on probably almost every chain that you could think of, but in terms of institutional adoption and what do they care about? Well, they want to see how it's functioning today.
Do you mind if I expand on that? Okay. The first canonical production ledger, the one that matters, begins after early experimental runs, sorry. Those early ledger numbers were never part of the finalized immutable XRPL history. It did not contain final balances or lasting state, are not required for validation or supply accounting. So they're not missing. They were never part of the canonical chain. Why this does not affect integrity, supply, or escrow. Everything that matters begins at the first accepted production ledger state. Total XRP supply reconciles, Genesis balances reconcile, escrow math reconciles. All subsequent ledgers validated back to that point. Now, if 30,000 ledgers were actually missing, validators would reject the chain. Exchanges could not reconcile balances and escrow contracts would fail. None of that happens right now or has ever happened. An analogy that maybe people can like or understand more is think of it like software versioning. Version 0.1 to 0.9 existed internally. Version 1.0 is the first official release. You don't say versions 0.1 to 0.9 are missing. They're never part of the public supported product. And you were kind of like, you were touching on this. It's not just XRP. Bitcoin in 2009 pre-releases, early test dates before Bitcoin was publicly released in 2009. Satoshi Nakamoto ran private test chains. These early chains were reset multiple times and are not part of the canonical Bitcoin blockchain. Even after launch, early bugs caused invalid blocks. An example that's the 2010 value overflow bug. Those blocks were orphaned and replaced, permanently removed from history. Another one of that is Ethereum. Ethereum is a perfect example. Before Frontier, the official launch, networks like Olympic, Morden, Frontier testnets, these chains were fully functional, had real blocks, transactions, and balances, explicitly intended to be discarded. Only Frontier in July 2015 was declared the start of the canonical chain for Ethereum. So hopefully that helps with that. Anything you want to add to it?
I mean, yeah, you're just that's kind of like what I was going to say for the fork on Ethereum, but you alluded to it. So um, continue.
2013, let's do it. Anything you want to add to it?
Open coin? No.
No? Okay. We'll skip it. Oh, we did the partnership, or not the partnerships, but the people who invested.
Do you want to go into people on the team?
Yeah, so like, we kind of mentioned David already, and Jed. 2013 is actually when Jed left, right? Difference of where this was headed. So I think the only thing I would say about 2013 is Ripple had already become the dominant name used by developers and early users to describe the protocol network and the company. In addition to raising the capital, the company began to engage with banks and payment providers and build enterprise software on top of the XRPL. This is where Jed was like, you know what? That's not my cup of tea. I'm out. So I would say that's probably kind of gives you a little bit please talk about the rest of the staff that came on board.
Yeah, well, I think you guys hit it out of the park on this on every episode that we do. That you guys really focus on, the history and the members behind it, and I think that that's also important for people to pay attention to. Right, the institutions don't necessarily just adopt the technology because it works. They adopt it because they also trust the people that are behind it. Right, the people are deciding whether or not people have to decide whether or not the technology is going to get used. So if you're a government, a fintech, a global financial market infrastructure, you're sitting inside of a room of people and you're asking, well, who builds it? Who runs it? Who's answering the phone when something breaks, right? Who understands the regulations? So the team behind some of these networks are just as important. And you have people from all different types of backgrounds. They come from, U.S. treasuries to some of the biggest Ivy Leagues out there. You got people coming from Amazon, people coming from Microsoft. You have people coming from all over established traditional financial giants that are coming in to work here, right? PayPal, Visa. The team is flooded with people who understand regulations, they understand technology, they understand adoption, they understand how Wall Street wants to function. So understanding the background of some of these people is important because these are the people that are actually sitting in the boardrooms and they're getting the adoption, the ball of adoption to roll.
Yeah, I mean, and also like Reese Merrick out of the UAE. I mean, the one thing that I thought was extremely um, important to note. I mean, and again, we're talking about Ripple. We obviously differentiated the two, right? But the XRPL and XRP sits at the center of everything that this operation does, right? And since it was, at a time which I thought was very bleak or grim, 2020, 2021, you still had this US based organization who was still looking at this problem, who was still looking at, maybe the United States is going to be the crypto capital of the world one day. And what if it does happen? We're going to need to be regulated in every part of the world in order for this to work. So I really do like the fact that if you look at their team, it isn't just a small group, it's literally hundreds of people. So that in and itself, when you're thinking about, is this organization something that is, set up to fail? No, they're like investment bankers. That's been the reason why Rosie Rios joined the board, and the reason why you have people who are, I would say, some points, some of the highest parts of finance and technology. When we look at stable coins, I mean, they brought in the guy from IBM, who was the leader of their tech stack platform. The list goes on and on and on daily. It just becomes a certain mindset to think that this is going to not be adopted globally when you have all of these pieces built into the puzzle. But again, until we have final clarity, final regulation, we just won't see how big this thing will get. But the team in itself, I mean, that was one of the biggest selling points for me just early on. If I'm just looking and being honest with people, I like looking at what is the problem they're trying to solve, and who's behind this. So I agree with you. It's impressive to say the least.
Yeah. I mean, listen, 2004, so 2013 to 2014, there was a huge shift, right? We're going from OpenCoin to Ripple Labs, I believe. Just make sure yeah, to OpenCoin to Ripple Labs. They were trying to become more. They were trying to give optics is everything, right? In business as well. FinTech is no different. TradFi is no different. They were starting to signal that they were becoming a technology company building real products, which matters for enterprise sales. Again, this is the shift in where we're headed. RippleNet expansion started to come to fruition. ODL starts to emerge a little bit, and obviously the partnerships just start to accumulate. Ripple's focus was on enterprise payment software, network relationships, specifically with RippleNet, and later liquidity tooling with ODL using XRP in some corridors. For those of you who are saying, great for Ripple, what about XRP? I would encourage you to keep listening and wait for 2017. So guys, with regards to partnerships, in 2014, and for everyone who's listening, if you have questions, please ask. We'll address them at the end of the show, or as we go, because this will probably be a little meatier one. And you should know that when we're doing our research, we don't talk to each other. We're doing what we research, and we come to you as if we're just bringing it up. So if it does sound like we haven't talked, we haven't. So this is all live.
Okay,
In
man.
2000,
Before we jump into the partnerships, I think that I have to address something in terms of the actual payments.
absolutely.
There are three core legs for an actual payment, guys, right? When you're sending a payment, there's three things. You have messaging, settlement, and liquidity. So when we say, okay, XRP does payments, well, you have to understand that there's three legs to a payment. A lot of people think that when you send money, the money just moves instantly and you receive it, right? It comes from me, it goes to you. But that's not actually what's happening when you send a payment. When you send a payment, there's a message that's sent, the system is updating its ledgers, and then the actual money will actually move later. So we have to understand messaging because you have some payment ecosystems in here that do target all three, and some of them don't target the actual liquidity. Some of them don't target the settlement. leg number one is your messaging, right? That's your communication. That's what's actually sending the information. It's telling one system, hey, I'm sending X amount of money over to that person. It's like sending a text to someone saying, I owe you $100. That information doesn't actually give that person $100. It's just actually telling them the information of the payment. And that's exactly what Swift does, right? Swift is your messaging system. Swift doesn't move money. It simply just moves information. And then you have the second leg in there, which is your settlement. Okay, settlement is the actual. It's when value is moving from one person to another. Okay, settlement is when that payment becomes final. On the XRP Ledger, you have almost near instant settlement, right? It's final. It's irreversible. And there's like no backsy takies. You got the third aspect of a payment, which is your liquidity. Liquidity simply means just having that money available at the moment that you need it, right? That's kind of what they're trying to ease up on it. Ease up with the Nostro Vostros is unlocking that liquidity. So XRP in and of itself is not the message. It's not the bank account. It is the liquidity tool that allows the institutions to have that instant settlement. I think that's important to kind of give people like a mini lesson on how does a payment actually move. You have those three aspects of that.
And a lot of things that we're going to cover today are going to just reinforce this. So yeah, absolutely right. Do we want to go on to 2014 partnerships?
Sure.
Let's do it. Okay, so the first one is Fedor Bank. It became one of the first banks globally to publicly test blockchain-based payments using Ripple's technology. Ripple began working with payment processors and FX providers like Earthport. For those of you guys who weren't around back then, and I'm sure most of us weren't, Earthport was a FX and correspondent payment whose clients included Bank of America and HSBC. Ripple and Earthport began technical collaboration discussions in 2014. Earthport was at the time one of the largest non-bank FX settlements networks. They were later acquired by Visa. Anything else you guys want to talk about 2014?
I mean, I don't have them itemized by year. I just have the list of partnerships. So you have them by year. Go ahead.
Okay. If you want to add any time, just say so. ZipZap. ZipZap is a payment processor. Ripple worked with ZipZap in 2014, consumer-facing international payments, cash to digital rails, testing both business-to-business and business-to-consumer payment processor models. Cross River Bank, which we were talking about on the live earlier today, earlier U.S. banking partner testing Ripple's settlement layer. Cross River later became famous as the fintech sponsor bank for Stripe, Coinbase, and a couple others. CBW Bank provided Ripple access to U.S. banking rails and supported early liquidity and settlement testing. With everything that we're going to cover, guys, it's really, really important that you start to see the full picture and to see what they were starting to build until what we know what happened in 2020, because it was building. You'll see what I mean. Western Union, which was testing only, it dates back to 2014. Ripple conducted internal settlement tests with Western Union. No production launch at that time. It confirmed later by Western Union executives that testing occurred years before public disclosure. We are going to talk about Western Union, I promise you, because it becomes a real key point before the lawsuit. In 2014, Ripple had already begun a strategic play. Ripple was deliberately targeting 3 layers of payment stacks: banks, Fedor, which I just talked about, payment processor gateways like ZipZap, and FX correspondent specialists, which was Earthport at the time. Anything you guys want to add?
You're doing great.
I mean, you're good,
pages.
man.
Let's go through it.
There's yeah, right. He's done 10 pages. I mean, we've heard about the partnership listing, right? We've heard about, there's 1,700 NDAs, et cetera, right? What we know is clear is that some of the biggest banks in the world, have tested it, Blockchain Billy does a really good show where he talks about this stuff. He goes through the Bank of International Settlements. He talks about all of these things that have been going on. I mean, Santander, Standard Chartered, PNC, SBI, National Bank of Abu Dhabi, Banco. The list is on and on and on. Again, when Caveman said to zoom out, you do have to look and ask yourself, like, well, why is it that some of these same banks are still working with some of these other companies too? Well, it's an interoperable multi-chain world, so there's going to be a lot of, I would say, partnerships with a lot of these companies. Who was there first is the question. Bully.
Nope, my hand was not up. Nope, I was interacting
Okay, I
with
don't
the
know
chat.
Go ahead.
So 2015, Bully, you want to take it over since you were talking about it? Mr. Brad Garlinghouse joined Ripple Labs. Want to talk about this?
We never even
honestly,
talked
bro.
about crypto, I don't know how
you're doing great. Go ahead. I can touch on it, but you're prepared for that, so hit it.
So he joined as a chief operating officer, right? His mandate was to professionalize operations, sharpen enterprise sales, and scale RippleNet. That's why he came to Ripple Labs. I don't know how many people are aware of this, but this guy was, he had some cred coming into Ripple Labs. AT&T was one of his roles as an operation management. Yahoo is a senior vice president. AOL, president of consumer applications. And then, weird, PayPal? He was the senior advisor. When he was in Yahoo, and I think this is probably something that we don't maybe necessarily give him credit for. Exactly. Right. Someone beat me to the punch. The Peanut Butter Manifesto in 2006, he criticized Yahoo for spreading resources too thin. What happened to Yahoo? Right? And he was calling for more focus. So no surprise, when he came to Ripple Labs, he really wanted to focus clearly where they were headed. They dropped the name Labs and began operating simply as Ripple. And why would you drop the Labs? Two reasons. Maturity, the company was no longer an experimental lab, and it had customers, contracts, and production systems, and also enterprise credibility. Banks and regulators prefer dealing with clear corporate brands, not something that sounds like a research group. The only other thing I would say is just product alignment. The company's core offering was RippleNet. It made sense to change it to just Ripple as a name. And then May 1st, their first lawsuit with FinCEN, which they got fined. You guys want to talk about that?
Tap it off, bro.
Okay. Well, I mean, essentially, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. I was just responding to someone in the chat, right? Because they're adding me here. So the Bank of England, because they're smart, they can do the research on themselves. Bank of England DLT research. You can do the RTGS platform, Republic of Palau, Central Bank of Bhutan. We already talked about MoneyGram and Xrp. So we continue.
So Ripple's Labs willfully violated several requirements of the Bank Secrecy Act by acting as a money service business and selling its virtual currency known as XRP without registering with FinCEN. Can't do that. And by failing to implement and maintain an adequate anti-money laundering program. In the settlement, the companies resolved possible criminal charges and Ripple forfeited $450,000. Ripple also agreed to engage in remedial steps to ensure future compliance with AML and CFT obligation. So this was the beginning of like Ripple saying, okay, we're not, we used to be walking down this, now we're going to change. They get slapped on the wrist by FinCEN and they move forward, making sure that they were compliant. Really, really important for what happens in 2020. Ripple became the first major crypto company to formally settle with US regulators. Ripple agreed to register money service business as a money service business and implement full AML and KYC. and to submit ongoing compliance oversight. This effectively licensed Ripple to operate in the United States, while a lot of other crypto companies, they had no interest back then.
Yeah, you gotta think about it too, right? There is a host of pilots, right? Pilots, programs, tests. You're, a lot of these projects that are coming around or that are a little bit newer. XRP Ripple has over 140, 150, right? Maybe probably more with remittance firms, central banks, custody, um, and then you have a lot of new projects that are wanting to get into the rooms that Ripple has been in. Why? Because it's built for banks, it's built for business. So I'm just addressing some of the things that I'm seeing here in the chat while you're talking.
Dingo. While XRP was not used in production, guys, in 2015, it formally defined XRP as a bridge asset and a liquidity tool, not equity. It structured XRP distribution contracts carefully, which again, important for the SEC case. This framing predated this SEC lawsuit by 5 years. In 2015, bank and payment partnerships expanded. Okay, Earthport, it deepened technical collaboration. Partnership connected Ripple to hundreds of correspondent banks, local clearing systems, and this relationship later fed directly into RippleNet corridors. They also worked with Commonwealth Bank of Australia for all our Aussies out there. It began internal testing of Ripple's technology. The focus was intra-bank and cross-border settlement efficiency. They also worked with UniCredit. It conducted early experiments with Ripple's Ledger Tech, part of Ripple's early European banking footprint. Worked with ATP Financial, explored blockchain settlement tech with Ripple. And in 2015, SBI, I guarantee you by the end of this, if you're going to listen to anything we're going to say, it's SBI. SBI was paramount in the lawsuit and in the early days of where Ripple was headed and XRP, obviously. It entered the picture, and Ripple expanded serious banking relationships across Asia, Europe, Australia, and North America. That brings us to 2016. If you guys want to add anything, I'll wait.
Nope, you're checking off the list. Keep going.
All right, so Ripple formalized its vision of bank-to-bank payments network. It later branded as RippleNet. Key elements: it standardized messaging, bilateral settlement rules, and compliance-friendly architecture. API-based integration with bank core systems. Ripple and SBI Holdings formally launched SBI Ripple Asia. Through SBI Capital, which is the venture arm of SBI Holdings, a lot of SBIs there. Essentially, it led a Ripple Series B round, Ripple's largest external shareholder at the time. And to the tune of, Ripple gave them 10 billion XRP, and their initial investment was 55 million, which, you guys can do the math. We started with 100 billion. And I think when you start to see what happened with SBI and how instrumental they are, people are going to start to understand how important Japan was, and specifically SBI. The joint venture to deploy Ripple technology across Japan, South Korea, Southeast Asia. SBI committed the capital, the distribution, and the regulatory relationships. One of Japan's largest financial conglomerates. It's deeply embedded in FX remittances, securities, and banking. I mean, SBI is a behemoth for Japan. Santander, which you guys talked about. Do you want to talk about Santander? Because they started working with them in 2016. What do you know about Santander? Anything other than the obvious?
They're just massive. I know that.
Yeah, it tested Ripple for cross-border retail payments at the beginning. It later launched OnePay FX, which production in 2018. Be the Change just said it's massive. Santander is a top 20 global bank with heavy remittance exposure. Santander Chartered explored Ripple for interbank settlement in emerging market corridors. They also worked with Westpac, tested Ripple technology for international payments, focused on speed versus Swift. It's one of Australia's big four banks. It operates across retail banking, commercial and corporate banking, it's wealth management, and international payments and FX markets. And then the one that we can talk about because it's pretty well known, R3 consortium involvement. There's a whole lot there. Let's talk about R3.
I mean, R3 is your ISO 222 compliant space for these technologies to integrate and work with them. I know that there was a case or there was disputes with R3 Corda, and then there was Corda Settler, which they rebranded. Forget what year that was.
17.
But what was it?
2017.
2017. Yeah. But no. What do you have in front of you?
So there's a lot of misunderstanding with Corda, right? With R3. Here's what happened. Not the BS. This is what happened. Ripple joined R3 consortium alongside 40 global banks. Ripple did not adopt Corda. R3 did not adopt XRPL. This was interoperability dialogue, not platform convergence. In 2017, R3 Holdco LLC filed a lawsuit against Ripple Labs for a contract dispute involving an options agreement. Specifically, the case concerned an agreement that gave R3 the right to buy 5 billion XRP at a total fixed price. R3 claimed Ripple improperly tried to cancel that contract. The legal dispute did not go to full trial, and in September of 2018, Ripple and R3 reached an out-of-court settlement and agreed to drop all litigation against each other. The terms of the settlement, confidential, but unrelated legal filings and reporting from SEC papers indicate that R3 exercised an option to buy XRP after the settlement and purchased at least 1.04 billion XRP under a now expired option agreement. That 1.04 figure comes from a separate documentation mentioning an enterprise software firm, widely understood as R3, purchased the XRP. And then that kind of brings us to 2017. And it's where XRP story actually kind of starts to take root. Up until now, 2013 to 2016, Ripple was software, compliance, and network formation. 2017 is the pivot from payments messaging to liquidity, which is what Change and Bully were talking about. Ripple had regulatory clearance. The lawsuit with FinCEN in 2015 proved that. A growing Ripple Net bank network and deep institutional anchor in Japan with SBI. Until now, XRP existed, but was not necessary. The question, why does XRP exist at all, was started and is what people still to this day argue about. And hopefully we can talk about that. Early 2017, Ripple explicitly began framing XRP as a bridge currency between fiat pairs, a tool to eliminate nostra vostra, like pre-funding, and a way to source on-demand liquidity. This is the conceptual birth of what later became the ODL, or on-demand liquidity, right? And the reason is because three conditions were finally met. Banks trusted Ripple, exchanges had sufficient XRP liquidity, and FX corridors, especially Asia, were ready. And this is the most important institution in the XRP story. What SBI did in 2017. The long and short is it publicly gave the thumbs up. It said, yes, XRP is a settlement asset. So in 2017, you had a major bank who is part of one of the biggest consortiums in Asia. It is saying XRP is a settlement asset. Massive. I don't know if you guys fully grasp that concept, because that's before, we're heavy into speculative territory right now. It integrated tech into Japanese banking infrastructure. It began pushing member banks toward production usage, and it took equity exposure to Ripple. SBI's CEO Yoshitaka, I'm sorry that I'm bastardizing this, but Kitao explicitly stated XRP would become the standard for global remittance. And he expanded membership to 60 Japanese banks, 60 plus to be honest. It covered 80% of Japan's banking assets. It focused on Japan to Southeast Asia, Japan to Korea, and remittance heavy corridors. Why does Japan matter for people who don't like or don't know anything about Japan, let's say? High remittance volumes, tech forward regulators, bank consortium culture, and FX settlement inefficiencies were well understood. Japan literally is the ideal sandbox for XRP liquidity. It's crazy. Anything you guys want to say regarding SBI and what it did? And yes, guys, we're seeing the updates for the prices. That's awesome. I'm happy for everybody, especially if you bought.
No, I mean, I think you really hit it on the head there, right? Because we have to understand too that this is you gotta go in your way back machine, right? And you gotta understand 2016, 2017. There's a lot of people in this room that weren't involved in crypto. I myself wasn't, right? I had heard about Bitcoin early on, decided to put my money into stocks, and some of those worked out, some of them didn't. But when I got a chance to look back into it, and doing the research, yeah, I mean, seeing something that's been around for a long time, and even if you don't have a bank that's going to say, hey, congratulations, we tested this, it didn't work, right? They're gonna talk about all the things that worked. And for me, when I see a huge bank like this out of Japan, and again, for me, Japan, just take a look at what that city's like in Tokyo, right? So a lot of, it looks like it's the future, right? And it would be nice if, all the cities look like that. But when it comes to Japan choosing and SBI choosing to work and utilize the XRPL, that gave it that real world use case. It just didn't matter here, right? And especially not to people until they saw what happened to the price. And I know that people like to talk about price because, how couldn't you? But I mean, name another crypto that has been tested by banks, remittance giants, right? Central banks and custodians, not recently, but for a decade when it wasn't a popular topic. And if you want to talk about price, well, that's going to tell me everything that there is to know about you. You're not looking at the long term. You're not looking at the utility of why these things are here. So yeah, I mean, it is amazing to see that they are still working with them, and since 2016, it's been a compounding build. It might not have been exciting the entire time, but continue. It's been amazing.
So I'm going to skip over the remittances and all that stuff because guys, I could spend literally 15 minutes on just SBI. But to add to what you just said, before 2017, Ripple equaled messaging and pilots. After 2017, Ripple was messaging, settlement, and liquidity thesis. This was the movement when XRP gained traction. It was a clear, defensible utility, a role that banks actually understood, and a reason to exist beyond speculation. Ripple moved from selling software to enabling liquidity corridor discussions. And this is what started it. In 2018, ODL is born. Banks go live. Ripple diverges from crypto cycle. The question, can XRP actually be used in production by regulated institutions? That was the number one question. Xrapid is launched, and Xrapid became ODL, on-demand liquidity. Ripple officially launched it. It uses XRP as a bridge asset. Okay, sources liquidity on demand, aim to eliminate pre-funded Nostro accounts, which we talked about earlier. This is the first time that XRP is required. It's not optional anymore. Ripple's value proposition becomes measurable in cost and speed. That same year, weird, SBI remit. You're going to start seeing this over and over again. Began live remittance flows. Using Ripple technology, it focused on Japan and Southeast Asia. XRP's usage started small, and I know it, guys, it was small. It still isn't where we want it to be, but it's real, and that's the important part. A couple other things, other places that got involved, coins.ph, which is from the Philippines, they acted as a liquidity endpoint for XRP. It enabled JPY, or the yen, to PHP remittance flows, which is crucial because corridors require exchanges liquidity on both ends, which is what Change was talking about earlier. Also, Colix, which was the first publicly confirmed Latin America Xrapid user, which tested USD to MXN. It demonstrated corridor profitability beyond Asia. Absolutely massive. In the mid-late to 2018, Santander, which we talked about earlier, it goes live. It launched OnePayFX, which used Ripple technology for same-day, next-day international transfers. There's one important nuance, which I do want to say. It used RippleNet messaging, but it did not use XRP at the launch. It proved Ripple could support consumer-facing production banking, and it removed reputational risk from other tier one banks. And then Change was talking about it earlier, MoneyGram. MoneyGram began structured pilots with Xrapid. It focused on high volume remittance corridors. And I mentioned him earlier. Do you guys remember when I said Jesse Powell, the co-founder of Kraken? Well, it's all freaking connected, guys. And then this is no different. Ripple invested and partnered with crypto facilities, which later became Kraken Futures. The purpose was to build institutional XRP derivatives, enable hedging for liquidity providers. And why this mattered? Because liquidity providers don't touch an asset without hedging tools. And this is quiet, but it was critical infrastructure. Bully, I see you laughing.
No, it's just important to understand. It's just so important to understand. How do these institutions actually interact?
Exactly. It's market versus reality, right? There's a key distinction. Crypto markets collapsed in 2018. People don't remember this. XRP price fell sharply, and we're all aware of like when that happens, how it feels. But Ripple's business activity increased. And this divergence is what's critical because Ripple was building payment infrastructures, not chasing hype, not chasing token appreciation. They were building. And this is where this is why I'm so passionate with this project. This is why, and this isn't me trying to FOMO you guys in. I'm like, this is a stack that they've been building since 2016.
So they weren't chasing retail liquidity? Is that what you're telling me?
They are not chasing retail liquidity. No, absolutely not. In 2018, they had other partners that came on board. Mercury FX, FX and payment provider, tested RippleNet and Xrapid, IDT, payments and remittance firm, Boss Revolution brand. It was an early adopter of Xrapid and it focused on consumer remittances. Why this mattered? You're going to hear the same thing over and over again. It demonstrated ODL could work outside bank rails. It helped validate speed and cost at a retail scale. Cambridge Global Payments was a B2B FX international payment and it joined RippleNet, which focused on corporate cross-border payments. I probably have the 1788 NDAs for you guys right here, like literally right here. CIMB, it's a bit of a, I'm joking. CIMB, which is the Southeast Asian Bank, it tested RippleNet for regional payments. University of Credit Union, which is in Philadelphia, it was a RippleNet pilot for domestic payments in 2018. RippleNet focused on cross-border payments using XCurrent. EuroXM Bank partnered with Ripple to offer cross-border payments and trade finance. Ripple tech used for settlement via Ripple Net Rails. Money Match in Malaysia, a licensed e-money provider. Ribbit.me, licensed money service provider and onboarded RippleNet. Guys, in 2018, Ripple began trimming its escrow schedule. As some of us may or may not be aware, I'm only one. I want to say this because it's a process that would continue into later years to alleviate circulating supply concerns. They locked portions of XRP, as Bully was saying, to 55-month escrow.
The number's 55, you said?
55-month
Okay.
escrows, correct. And what wasn't widely publicized at that time, but was in the SEC filings and blockchain data to collaborate, the escrow release patterns in 2018. And this is what it was. Ripple's annual ecosystem call. Oh, sorry. That's what it was. I apologize. I must have misread that. They locked portions. Oh, the 55-month is what wasn't widely publicized. And then there's only other thing that happened in 2018 that kind of took off was Ripple Swell. Do you guys know anything about Ripple Swell? Because I've never been.
It's
Not cool
essentially
enough.
a banking conference. I don't believe that they were allowed in a banking conference from Swift, so they opened one up down the block, and then it's really kind of just been a banking conference ever since because they were forced out of the Swift banking conference.
And this year in 2026, they'll be opening it up to the public in New York.
So we are cool now.
We are.
All right. I'll see you guys in New York. In 2019, ODL scales, MoneyGram commits, and XRP survives the first real volume test. Remember I told you we talk about MoneyGram? This is when MoneyGram becomes pretty freaking important. But before we go there, as I said before, Ripple rebranded Xrp to on-demand liquidity. And why this mattered, again, it's optics, guys. For institutional players, it framed XRP's usage in institutional language. It emphasized balance sheet efficiency, liquidity sourcing, and capital optimization. This made ODL sellable to CFOs, not just engineers. Not that any of us are. Maybe there are a couple in there. If there are, shout out to the engineers. We need you. Ripple and MoneyGram announced a strategic partnership and equity investment. And yes, I saw someone in the comments say this. Pay to play. This was a pay to play scenario, absolutely 100%, and was very instrumental in doing so. Ripple invested $50 million into MoneyGram equity. Ripple committed additional incentive payments, and then MoneyGram committed to using ODL in live production and then route real remittance volume through the XRP. This was the first time a top tier global remittance firm committed publicly to the XRP Ledger and using XRP. MoneyGram, guys, which is really important. I know for you and me and maybe people in here, $50 million is a lot of money. For MoneyGram, $50 million doesn't matter. Like it just doesn't. It's a publicly traded company. It's heavily regulated. It has high volume, margin sensitive. They wouldn't risk compliance or operations on something theoretical, especially not for $50 million. What this partnership did do is it validated XRP as a liquidity tool. It forced XRP to handle real world scale and created transparent volume metrics. ODL volume grew month over month, and ODLs reduced their costs, settlement times dropped, and XRP was being used intraday. So massive. This is speculation on my part. I think what happened with MoneyGram was the beginning of like TradFi and maybe the SEC going, whoa, pump these brakes. Again, that's my opinion. Everyone else can have their own. I'm not sure how you guys feel about that.
Yeah, I mean, I would say so. I mean, that someone mentioned ETHgate in the chat. I mean, it was kind of around the same time.
Also,
But yeah, I mean, it is to me probably, again, without getting into conspiracies of it all, right? Um, we know it's connected. We know a lot of these companies, they came out of a certain region in California and Silicon Valley. You get a lot of this, what they were planning to build. I mean, you even saw some of the largest institutions in the world fighting Bitcoin for years, all the while buying it and testing it and being on the lookout for what it potentially could be. That's all what we're trying to do on this show, right? Um, is to look and see what the potential of these networks are, what these protocols are, because really at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's software. But yeah, man, uh, giving that its credibility, it just started to go up from there. You had to deal with a lot of years of what is it doing? No one's building there. Look at the volume. That's like saying, Swift has more apps than iOS, so Apple's not important, or the App Store isn't important, right? It's talking about two different things. So Caveman, you are killing it, dude. I love it.
I mean, I'm
Keep
not gonna
going.
lie to you guys. I'm probably gonna have to like publish this. I don't know if we're gonna be able to get through it all. I'm just being honest with you. Yeah, but this information is for everybody. So like, I want you guys to have it. All right, so we have MoneyGram happening, right? Meanwhile, they're not finished. Colleagues in Mexico or Latin America, they started expanding the ODL usage to them. It helped build the USD to MXN liquidity depth. Why this mattered for everybody? High remittance volumes over there. Inefficient legacy rails, FX spreads were wide and perfect stress environment for the ODL. Mexico became one of XRP's most important corridors. It focused on market makers, liquidity providers, exchange integrations, and spread tightening. This isn't sexy, but without it, ODL breaks. Slippage kills savings, and banks would have walked away. So you're really being tested. And then we have the beginnings of ETHgate, the beginnings of the lawsuit, regulatory pressure. It quietly increases. While there isn't a lawsuit yet, XRP's classification questions, they intensify. Ripple increased legal spend, and internal documentation around XRP sales, it tightened. This becomes really important for the case. Now, with MoneyGram's partnership, Ripple moved ODL from experimentation. I just want to loop back on this one into sustained commercial use. XRP handled real remittance volume across multiple corridors. It really was. I am very happy for ETHgate because it allowed all of us, to get into XRP. I don't know if it continued on the same trajectory then, if we would be, if the prices would be as cheap today. That's what I would say about that. And at the same time, in that time, they partnered with Trianglo. Initial collaborations began, and I'm aware equity was in 2021, but the collaboration started then. Regional payment hub, it enabled access to multiple Asian corridors, and it integrated with RippleNet. They also partnered with Bitso for a core liquidity provider for USD to MXN ODL corridor. And this mattered because Bitso became one of the most important XRP liquidity venues globally. Without Bitso, Mexico ODL, it doesn't scale. Bitrex, an exchange liquidity provider, it supported US side liquidity for ODL corridors. And this mattered because it provided compliant US exchange access pre-SEC lawsuit. InstaRem, which is a digital remittance provider, joined RippleNet. It focused on Asia Pacific remittance corridors. And you guys are talking about a Bank of England, right? As you said, Ripple representatives used Ripple's insights for blockchain regulatory frameworks. I apologize. Ripple executives were invited to the BIS. For those of you guys who don't know the BIS, it's the Bank of International Settlements roundtable on cross-border payments modernization. Important because even without XRP adoption, Ripple's recognized as a contributor to institutional conversations. Do you guys want to talk about that anymore? Like as far as like the significance of BIS and what they were doing with them?
I mean, we could spend hours on it. I think it's just you were giving people research breadcrumbs for them to look up their own.
Fair. Even with these partnerships, banks still preferred messaging first. XRP usage was concentrated, not universal, but Ripple subsidized early ODL usage strategically. Adoption was commercial, but it was also fragile. For the developers out there and technical outreach, Ripple's Xpring program launched in 2018, 2019. It began funding the ecosystem projects building on the XRP Ledger, including Codius-related smart contract initiatives, wallet infrastructure upgrades, and NFT and tokenization teams building on the XRPL. By January 2020, ODL was live and scaling. MoneyGram was routing real volume, XRP has proven functional utility, and Ripple had enterprise traction outside the US. Regulatory ambiguity in the US remained unresolved. I just want to paint a clear picture because for 2020, so that we know what it would look like prior to SEC getting involved. The ODL volumes continued expanding from the US to Mexico, US to Philippines. MoneyGram publicly stated, this is public knowledge, you guys can look it up. XRP reduced settlement times, XRP reduced FX costs, and XRP positions were held seconds, not hours. XRP was being used exactly as designed before the lawsuit. Then came the C19 macro stress, which was great. I'm sure everyone was happy about that and fond memories. Now, you know how you can turn lemons into lemonade? This happened for them because what happened was global payment flows were disrupted, remittances spiked, migrant workers, they couldn't send money home, liquidity volatility increased, and Ripple's position, ODL continued operating. XRP volatility increased, but settlement still worked. Ripple used this period to stress test liquidity mechanics. They were able to observe behavior under crisis conditions. And then regulatory pressure increased. Behind the scenes, XRP classification debates escalated. Ripple increased legal reserves, compliance staffing, internal controls around XRP sales tightened even more. And then December 22nd, 2020, Ripple was in its second lawsuit, or I guess third if you include Jed McCaleb. So the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission filed suit against Ripple, Brad Garlinghouse, and Chris Larson. Talk me through this, guys.
You're talking about the SEC lawsuit?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this was initiated in 2020. The SEC filed a lawsuit against them, and it basically put Ripple's back to the wall. They basically were forced to defend the nature of XRP. They had to basically clarify how it was sold, and they had to reevaluate how it operates on a global scale, and that put a lot of pressure on them. Ultimately, they came to the conclusion that XRP in and of itself is not a security, but early institutional sales of it was. And I believe that's why the escrow payments are not allowed to be sold to institutions. I believe that they have to be purchased from exchanges now.
Yeah, it's the how the token is sold is now the new classification because, again, we had to have some sort of case law after this case. We obviously know what happened, but during this time, a lot of the discussions was not even really, if you watched any of this stuff, I mean, a lot of it was uh, I forget if it was the Senate and Housing Banking Committee. I forget what the name of the committee is, but they were grilling Gary Gensler. They had Brad Garlinghouse out there. I mean, you're dealing with a public case, right? A federal case. And one thing that I do appreciate or like about the company Ripple in support of this selling of the token, right? And what they were trying to say is, listen, guys, like we just want rules of the road. You're saying that we're breaking the law, but how is that so? And when you pay attention to the organization and, again, you go through the history of all the people involved and the reasons why they were all put in their places, because if you don't hire somebody for strategy, what are you doing, right? Like, why are you hiring them, right? They're going to complete the job, but there's also should be strategy behind it. So when they were going through this case, Ripple, in a sense, outlined the future of what this asset class will be, because now we have a full case that went through and looked, and now they can write new laws on what, because again, they were using the
Jurisprudence.
Howey. They were using the Howey test, right? The Howey test was, when does that come out? Right? And the Howey test is the reason why they got ETH and Bitcoin to go to commodity status before there was ever even a digital market structure that was even created, which is why the Clarity Act for me is so important at this point in time. But in that case, what we got to see was pretty simply the US didn't have an answer, right? And we needed to create a new regulation for this, which is why you're starting to see the CFTC and the SEC work in conjunction together. So, yes, the case was extremely important to what we're talking about today. And I think people really lose sight of that when they want to pick sides. You might not have even had a side had this not happened.
Anything you want to add, Bully? You're for. Can't hear you.
No.
No. Okay. Okay. So just as a consequence of the lawsuit starting, you have to know there were some things that happened. One, all of Ripple's inroads into America stopped. They ceased. Their partnership with MoneyGram over. They now, in saying that, at the same time, they ante up. They're like, we're ready, we're prepared, we got our coffers full, we're fighting this fight, which gave its investors and hopefully some people who invested in the token, but I'm talking about the early investors, sort of like a little bit of comfort because they knew that they weren't just going to fold. At the same time, in May 2020, Ripple announced it had joined the ISO 2002022 RMG standards body as a member focused on DLT. It positioned Ripple to contribute expertise in applying ISO 2002022 to distributed systems and cross-border payments. You can imagine doing this while you're actually going through a potential lawsuit. But they wanted to help influence how it applies to cross-border payments and digital rails. The company's RippleNet product is designed to work with ISO 20022 messaging so the banks and payment systems can interoperate more easily using structured data forms. We've talked about this a lot. I'm pretty sure this is just covering, I'm just going to briefly touch on that. And then as well, the partnerships continued, which is crazy because you're literally fighting a fight with the SEC. You're going over there trying to like figure out what the new standard of messaging is going to be, and then it's like, oh hey, Triangle, hi, yeah, we're interested. And it deepened its commercial relationship with Triangle. It focused on Southeast Asia corridors, Malaysia, Philippines, Indonesia. And what Triangle does is it connects banks, mobile wallets, and remittance firms. Are you trying to do a tease to Bitcoin people with a pizza?
I was eating a chicken cutlet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And he's
Well,
also in New
I
York,
can
so.
buy chicken cutlets with XRP. I just want to say that's my biggest use case of it.
They also partner with Lulu Exchange. Lulu, not Lululemon for everybody else out there who's not listening right now. It's a major Middle East and India remittance provider. It joined RippleNet. It tested Ripple's cross-border payments. And why this mattered is because it concentrated the Middle East to South Asia, which is one of the largest remittance corridors globally. Also, it partnered with National Bank of Egypt. It became a RippleNet member. It's a state-linked commercial bank. It joined RippleNet via regional payment partners, and it signaled Ripple's adoption in Africa, Middle East corridors. Important because it is a government-adjacent banking credible source. I'm going to not be able to say this properly. I'm so sorry if you guys are Spanish, but also Banco Rendimento, which is a Brazilian correspondent and FX bank. It joined RippleNet, focused on Brazil's based cross-border payments. It strengthened the Latin America footprint, and Brazil is a key remittance and FX hub. The Novati Group, payments and settlements provider, integrated RippleNet and focused on Asia Pacific settlement. The next one that we should probably talk about, guys, and this is one that we're all familiar, is Bank of America. Fact and fiction. What do you guys know? What do you want to talk about? Go ahead.
Before we get into that, I need to talk about this RippleNet shit. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So listen up. For the people that are talking about RippleNet, think of that as your funnel instead of it being something that blocks XRP. Okay. So people have said this for years. Banks will use RippleNet, but never XRP. So XRP will never be adopted. That sounds logical, okay, until you realize it is a false assumption. So Ripple is the private company that sells the enterprise software. RippleNet is a closed and permissioned payment network for banks and institutions. The XRPL is an open and public decentralized ledger. The XRP is the asset, the native asset, which can be used on or off RippleNet. Now, you think you can merge all four things into one thing? You cannot. It wasn't designed to replace XRP. It was designed to help banks on board. They're not going to plug directly into a public blockchain and bypass compliance frameworks, especially when the company literally went to bat for regulation clarity for years and spent I don't even know how much money.
50 million?
There you go. And expose themselves directly as a regulatory risk. So Ripple did what any enterprise company would do, meets institutions where they are at. So RippleNet provides the KYC and the AML workflows, the messaging, the compliance tooling, and the settlement coordination. Think of RippleNet as training wheels for institutions entering blockchain-based settlements. Now, RippleNet does not block that XRP. It enables optional usage via the ODL. So XRP is invoked only when it's economically advantageous. Institutions choose XRP when it reduces costs and friction. And that's not a failure, that's capital discipline. Banks don't adopt assets because they're cool, they adopt them because they save them money. And here's the why RippleNet first, XRP later is actually bullish for all of you in the chat. RippleNet is a funnel, not a ceiling. The step-by-step institutional reality is that banks adopt RippleNet for messaging and tracking. Trust and operational familiarity is built. Liquidity inefficiencies become visible. XRP becomes attractive as the bridge asset, and then XRP scales only where it makes sense. So if Ripple forced XRP day one, adoption would have failed. Regulators probably would have blocked it and banks would have walked away. So the optional nature of XRP is what kind of kept the door open while we waited for regulations. Now, the XRPL does not need RippleNet because the XRPL runs independently and it has the validators Ripple does not control, and it supports the peer-to-peer transfers. If Ripple disappeared tomorrow, not to mention the DEX, the AMMs, the tokens, the NFTs, and the tokenization, but if Ripple disappeared tomorrow, RippleNet would stop, but XRPL would continue. XRP would still exist. The validators would still be valuable, and that alone destroys the XRP can't exist without RippleNet argument. Why is it acceptable for Ethereum to rely on Infura and Consensus and Layer 2s, but unacceptable for XRP to have RippleNet as one adoption path? Enterprise middleware exists everywhere. Ethereum has infra, Bitcoin has custodians and ETFs, Swift has banks on top of it, RippleNet is middleware, not control. And the real fear behind the FUD is that this argument persists because it implies something uncomfortable. XRP adoption doesn't need retail hype. It needs regulatory clarity, corridor economics, liquidity efficiency, and that means a slow start. Quiet pilots, boring progress, hardly any price action, sudden inflection points, which is exactly how infrastructure adoption always looks. RippleNet does not need XRP adoption. It's the compliance bridge that makes institutional XRP possible at all. So RippleNet was never the end game. It was the on-ramp. XRPL is the rail. XRP is the asset. RippleNet is the bridge that lets regulated money come across without falling into the river. And bridges aren't permanent. They're transitional. Welcome to Utility Unlocked. So we can continue on, but I
like it.
RippleNet.
Oh, I know. I like
RippleNet.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's important that people understand what they're building. At the very end of this, we're going to say it a couple times. XRP is at the middle of everything that they're working on, not RippleNet.
Are you still going year by year?
Yeah, we're at BOA. You guys want to talk about BOA?
Bank of America, yes. They used RippleNet.
They did. Bank of America. Okay, so there's a lot of misconceptions. I'm not gonna lie. So let's destroy this. Bank of America has participated in a pilot with Ripple's distributed ledger technology (DLT), according to Ripple. The pilot involved Ripple's enterprise software, Xcurrent, believe it or not, RippleNet, and not necessarily the XRP token itself. Bank of America has been part of Ripple's global payments steering group since 2016, a consortium working on rules and standards for Ripple payments. You're not going to work on that since 2016 if you don't think it has any value. January 2025, a CEO of an unrelated company on Fox Business Channel said that the Bank of America used XRP for 100% of internal transaction. There is no official confirmation from Bank of America or Ripple. And so I cannot say that that is true. And then regarding the patents for Bank of America that mentions Ripple, if anybody here is a savant, you may want to listen to this. US 201901720509A1 talks about real-time net settlement in 2019. The patent application describes a blockchain-based net settlement system that is used on a distributed ledger for settlement between bank accounts. It uses diagrams and terminology similar to settlement concepts often associated with RippleNet. One 2019 application references Ripple and style settlement concepts. That is all. Those are the only things. So we have this one patent that refers to Ripple and working with them since 2016 on the global payment steering group and also piloting the Xcurrent and RippleNet messaging system. That is all that Bank of America is on the record doing. However, it's not disclosed at this time if Bank of America does own any patents that specifically claim or cover Ripple Labs, XRPL, or the XRPL token. And that is, we're going to put a fork in Bank of America. January 2021, XRP was effectively sidelined in the United States. Major U.S. exchanges suspended trading. The SEC lawsuit dominated the narrative. Outside the U.S., RippleNet and ODL, it continued operating. Ripple had cash, they had legal strategy, and they had international partners. Can Ripple survive a hostile regulator while the rest of the crypto booms? Ripple made a strategic decision. They wanted to contest the lawsuit because they wanted to reject an early settlement that would have likely labeled XRP as a security and therefore restrict future usage. Historically, crypto companies, they settled quietly. They paid their fines. They accepted operational limits. Ripple's not interested. They're in it for the long haul. They chose precedence over expedience. April 2021, Ripple has an early legal win. Judge Torres, she granted Ripple access to internal SEC communications. This is when all the Hinman-related documents started to come out and people started talking about it, right? The Ripple's defense hinged on lack of fair notice. So essentially, they wanted to prove, hey, you made Bitcoin, Ethereum be okay, but like we don't get the same treatment, is essentially what they were saying. Meanwhile, Japan's a powerhouse. SBI Holdings doubled down publicly. So remember, we're heating up. As far as everyone in North America, Ripple's garbage at this point for most people. Japan's over here saying, in SBI Holdings, saying, no, we're going to double down. Japanese exchanges did not delist XRP. ODL flowed and continued through SBI-linked entities. Japan became Ripple's de facto anchor in Mexico, and then also Mexico. Bitso reported that XRP becoming its most traded asset by volume for American and Mexican corridor, which remained active. And then in May 2021, Ripple invested in Trianglo. It acquired 40% stake. So it's starting to show you guys, like, not only are they not going to bow down to the SEC, but we're going to double down and we're going to continue to grow. And if we're not going to grow in North America, we're going to grow around. So that eventually when everything comes to what we know, then we can come into North America and do what we know what happened in 2024 and 2025. In 2021, however, leadership and financial posturing. Brad Garlinghouse became the public face of the legal fight. And we all saw the memes. It engaged policymakers directly. He shifted Ripple towards policy and advocacy and regulatory reform dialogue. Ripple also disclosed it was cash flow positive and it had billions in XRP reserves. It could fund a multi-year legal defense, and this was all positive for the longevity of where we were headed. Ripple also started to engage with CBDC, and this is where some of the FUD comes in, right? Central banks, which were obviously non-US. It began quiet pilot discussions with central banks and monetary authorities, focusing on private XRPL forks, tokenized fiat, and interoperability, not public XRP usage. Late 2021, legal momentum shifted. All of a sudden, it goes from Ripple in the crosshairs to now, oh, wait a second, what's going on here? And court ordered the SEC to produce internal guidance documents. SEC wasn't having it. They're like, nope, we're not doing it. And then institutional observers, they began saying, well, wait a second, is the SEC going to win this? XRP became like a long-term viability. And this is when the institutional mind started changing. They're like, okay, maybe there is something here. Meanwhile, more partners, they came on board. They didn't stop. Here we go. GME Remittance, Asia Pacific remittance provider, joined RippleNet from Singapore. SBI Remit expanded RippleNet's usage. It continued XRP-based settlement testing. Union Bank of Philippines continued RippleNet integration. Pipel, whom we all probably know, payments and prepared fintech, integrated Ripple technology for cross-border payments, which matters because UAE is a strategic Middle East payment hub. The Royal Monetary Authority of Bhutan, which you already talked about, Be the Change, got involved. The Republic of Palau, you already talked about. Finastra, which is a banking software provider, continued RippleNet connectivity for banks already on Finastra's stack. Why this matters? Because it embedded Ripple into existing bank software. Banco Santander Brazil, Mercury FX, Send UK, and Mina all got involved. 2022, legal momentum shifted. The Hinman dockets became decisive, and the end game, it came into view. SEC lawsuit, as I said, guys, it froze the US momentum. But XRP, it's still trading globally. Ripple had not settled, and discovery was largely complete. At the March-April 2022, Hinman documents became central. And what are the Hinman documents for people who don't know? It basically was the internal SEC communications related to a 2018 speech by SEC Finance Director William Hinman, where he stated Bitcoin and Ethereum are not securities. Now, Ripple argued that SEC gave market guidance and XRP was treated inconsistently and that SEC failed to provide fair notice. And why this mattered, because if the document showed internal disagreement or lack of clarity or selective enforcement, then the case would be dismissed. Court ordered in July, the court ordered Hinman documents to be disclosed, and Torres repeatedly ordered the SEC to do so, but they resisted and they appealed internally and delayed it. September 2022, summary judgment motions filed. Both parties filed motions for summary judgment. The core arguments were, obviously we already talked about the core arguments. SEC's position that XRP was an investment contract. And then this continued back and forth. Unfortunately, at the same time that we're having this case go on, we have another macro collapse. You guys remember Terra Luna? Same time. Terra Luna. Terra Luna collapse, Celsius, Voyager failures, FTX nearing implosion in late 2022, and an absolute shit show with the SEC. XRP, it never shifted. The XRPL never halted. XRP liquidity persisted globally. XRP was not implicated in any collapse, and this became an unspoken contrast. I mean, what more do you need to do to test a ledger or a coin than what this has gone through? Is the question of the day.
That is a good question.
It's a great question. I don't know how much. Also C19, let's put that on there as well. By December 2022, the case is fully briefed. They settled, they talked about absolutely everything they had to talk about. But XRP Ledger use cases expanded. Tokenized assets, including stablecoins, the USDT on XRPL, and USDX proposals. NFT mints via XRPL NFT Ledger launched late 2021 and then grew into 2022. Until 2021, I don't know. I guess everyone's aware now. There were no smart contracts by design. They were only focused on speed and compliance. Settlement, liquidity, IOUs, DEX, and escrows. 2022, Ripple formally introduced the XRPL sidechains vision. Not actually a sidechain yet, but the goal was to add programmability without contaminating XRPL's core. It built it with Cosmos SDK and Style SDK. It built it with Cosmos SDK style interoperability. The ledger upgrades related to decentralized order books, tokenized fiat stablecoins, and exchange ledger integrations. These improved XRPL's product utility for real asset tokenization. As of today, there are, and we talked about it earlier, there are 902 nodes, 113 validators, which monitor vote on changes to the ledger through amendments. Amendments can be watched on XRP Scam. There are currently 143 proposed amendments. In 2022, the following were adopted: expanded signer list, which basically meant multi-signer list entries, NFT token auto trust lines, and non-fungible tokens, which basically meant enabled native NFT support on the XRPL. Partnerships in 2022, Saudi Arabia for Saudi payments. And then executives, they were involved in the G20 Payments Regulation Working Group and the World Bank IMF FinTech panels, and obviously the BIS cross-border payments pilot discussion. 2023, Taurus, she's had enough. There's a judgment ruling. Decisions without a full trial were hopefully going to be made. Here's the exact distilled ruling. XRP programmatic sales. Programmatic sales of XRP on public exchanges to retail investors were not security transactions under US law. be it business to business institutional XRP sales, were found to be sales of securities. So that's essentially what the ruling was. You talked about the Howey test, so we can skip that. I do have what the Howey test is. It doesn't pertain to XRP in particular, so definitely look up what the Howey test is and why, it is what it is. Summary, not every token needs a registration with SEC because of what XRP went through and Ripple went through. It depends on distribution, conduct, and economic reality. After the ruling, Coinbase relaunched XRP trading for US customers, a huge marker which given SEC compliance standards. They explicitly noted this was based on the court's legal reasoning. So that's what Coinbase said. Because of the court's legal reasoning, other exchanges like Bitstamp, Kraken, they instated XRP as well. US institutions re-onboarded XRP, custodians enabled holdings, exchanges restored order books, OTC desks resumed XRP liquidity services. And this ruling, it provided legal clarity, predictability, restoration to US markets, and a framework for token compliance, all of which instrumental in moving forward, right? The launch of, on the technical side, there was the launch of XRPL EVM sidechain for Rio. Do you guys want to talk about that? That's a pretty good one. How do you feel about the XRP sidechain?
It's essential.
I mean,
It
it's
was
essential, yeah.
for. I mean, you take a look at any type of interoperability platforms. It's absolutely essential. We know it's a multi-chain future. If you're operating in that siloed ecosystem, you're completely missing out on what is to come. I mean, what else could you say besides if you don't have that interoperability, you're locking yourself out of the gates before the race even starts.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then with the EVM side chain, with all of that, I mean, you just look at, we talked about all these partnerships. Securitize is one of those ones that's high up on the list. That's as your person in the middle that's getting everything going. That you have all of these individuals who are working together. So yeah, and I appreciate everyone here. MMG crypto. I know we have this talk a lot, in terms of like volume and stuff like that, which I appreciate. I just want to address a couple things too. Number one, the 1700 NDAs comment that I made, my bad. It was 1700 agreements. It was a snapshot in a court document. When Ripple decides to release that information, they will. But we have probably seen some of the likes of that in Sense the Case, right? And Sense the Case, what has happened? GT Treasury, Hidden Road, the list goes on and on. So is it going to be 1700? I don't know, maybe. But when it's not doing very well, though, they need to take in the liquidity of the sidechain. Correct. And what I would say is, when you compare XRP to ETH SOL usage metrics, you're not comparing settlement rails to application platforms. That's like saying Swift has fewer apps than iOS, so Swift is irrelevant. You have to understand that this is going to be boring because we're waiting for clarity, right? So Ethereum is growing. It is massive, okay? I made many videos saying that it's one of those ones that I just can't ignore. You can't ignore it. Will I go making FUD predictions about it? No, I won't waste any time or energy on that. What I can tell you is that traditional finance, there's that question that's going on with DeFi, right? And especially what you have what's going on with the Clarity Act in its current iteration, and the reason why there's some hesitation there. TradFi, might be, we're going to just work with the bankers coin. If they want to go ahead and interact with the DeFi community, if they want to interact there in that space, it could grow massively, but they want their protection too. So I do see this being something that is probably a stagnated growth, but in terms of how much growth has happened in such a short amount of time, it's still, to me, a nice signal that things are moving in the right direction. If you can agree or disagree with that. Anyone?
I agree. So in
Wormhole, right?
2023, pardon?
Are you talking about Wormhole?
Not yet. We're,
All
we're,
right.
we're getting there for sure.
Okay.
2023 Amendment AMM, which is the automated market maker
Oh,
introduced.
before we do that, can we do a bathroom break real quick?
Yeah, man, absolutely.
All right.
If you guys need to go to the bathroom, now is a great time to do it. This show has been brought to you by Fiji Water, only because I went to the gas station prior to coming to get some water, some Halls. a Toblerone chocolate so I can get some energy. And in case that failed, Reese's Pieces. You can't. Reese's Pieces, peanut butter cups. It was. I knew this was going to be. This was going to be a massive undertaking. There's a lot of information, and I'm glad you guys are here. I'm hoping that you guys are enjoying it. I don't even know why I'm still talking right now because I should preserve my voice. And I'm gonna let him talk.
And I was just listening to you the whole time. It was pretty funny. Yeah, man. So, yeah, this is a lot, and the reason why I think too, if anyone's feeling like, oh, you guys didn't spend enough time on some of these other projects as you do here. To be fair, none of the other projects have been around as long as this one has. So this one is going to take a very long time to get through. You see me snacking on stuff. I missed dinner. I don't feel good. But again, we're here. We're here for you. Welcome to the show. Thank you.
2023. We're just gonna keep it going. We're gonna truck along. I talked about the automated. I was going to talk about the automated market maker. It introduced AML liquidity pools and LP tokens integrated with the XRPL DEX. New partnerships: Ripple and Uphold. It enhanced cross-border payments and infrastructure. Ripple and Onafik, for all my French people out there in Africa. It expanded cross-border payment corridors, enabled digital asset cross-border payments between Africa, Middle East, UK, and Australia. In November 2023, Ripple expanded partnerships in Europe, including with Lemonway in France, Exbat in Sweden, and Kuwait Finance House for cross-border bank payment services. These were framed as part of Ripple's European and Middle East payment corridor expansion strategy. Then they go into medical custody and integrated. Do you want to talk? You're eating. Do you want me to talk about it? Or you want to talk about it?
I mean, you could talk about it. I mean, what I want people to put into perspective, at least from my perspective, for the last few years, was seeing Medico, and you're thinking, why are they doing that? Why are they getting a platform for custodying of crypto? And then you have to expand the knowledge of, well, it's almost as if the system was getting upgraded and they were like, these are the things that we need in order for this to happen. So to put it into that perspective, I will let Caveman tell you the fundamentals of Medico and why that matters so much today.
Yeah, essentially, this was massive for the entire ecosystem. This was that institutional custody. Banks cannot use XRP or any tokenized assets without secure custody. So no custody, no institutional adoption.
Boom! There it is. Exactly. And honestly, that's all you really need to know. There's a bunch of more things. That's really it. After that, MSA regulatory license in Singapore happened June 2023. These guys are just trucking. In 2023, things just started to really pick up. The MAS is the Monetary Authority of Singapore. Ripple received in principle approval to offer regulated digital payment token services from MAS, giving it a strong foundation for institutional activity in Southeast Asia. Ripple could offer services for banks and institutional customers in Asia with regulated status. a real differentiation between other competitors they had who are unlicensed. In 2024, the big question was, can XRP re-enter regulated capital markets? Derivatives quietly returned first. Institutions always re-enter via derivatives before spot. The CME pathway opens conceptually. While CME Group did not immediately list XRP futures in early 2024, two things changed. XRP now met the legal clarity threshold for CME, which requires XRP futures that could be justified as cash settled, surveillance shared, and compliant under existing commodities frameworks. Custodians resumed XRP support for US clients, and prime brokers like Coinbase Prime, Galaxy Digital, B2C2, FalconX were re-allowed. I want to say R2D2, I don't know why. And balance sheet exposure and structure products. XRP re-entered model portfolios as payment infrastructure exposure and non-proof of work settlement asset. Acquisitions continued in 2024, guys. Standard custody acquisition. Standard custody. Ripple acquired Standard Custody, a regulated U.S. custodian, expanding Ripple's licensed infrastructure for institutional custody of digital assets. Boom. I know Bully just wants to chomp on that. What do you have to say about Standard Custody?
I mean, it was one of the clearest signals that Ripple is building this regulated financial infrastructure inside of the U.S. Right? They're not just offering solutions to their clients. This was a regulated trust company inside of the United States. It was a big indicator as to what exactly is this company or this this tech stack becoming.
Change?
I mean, it seems like they were just making sure that the world was going to get adopted, maybe building the internet of value.
Weird. Where have I heard that before? Ripple's ability to serve institutional clients with compliant custody solutions is what it's all about. An essential piece of institutional onboarding. Institutional flows prioritized licensed custodians. This acquisition helped Ripple meet the requirement in a rigorous regulatory environment. Then, Hidden Road acquisition, which started in 2024. Obviously, we all know it completed in 2025. Ripple agreed to buy prime brokerage Hidden Road for over $1.25 billion. It later rebranded as Ripple Prime, and the deal was announced in 2024. Like I said, completed in 2025. The move aimed to give Ripple OTC trading, clearing, settlement, and broker services, all critical for institutional balance sheet exposure and structured product issuance.
Something a security cannot do.
Boom. Ripple and Ola Money. They got together too. I like that name, Ola Money. It's a collaboration. It's Ola Money, for those who don't know, is a fintech payment ecosystem. It helps enable faster, cheaper cross-border transfers using Ripple's payment network. Ripple and Saudi payments. There was some experimental work. Ripple engaged with Saudi payments, the Saudi Arabian National Payments Network, for pilot testing of real-time cross-border payments rails. And then there was a Singapore headquarter and regional institutional push. For those of you guys who don't know, Ripple's Singapore presence became a formal headquarter for Asia Pacific. Payments and institutional products in 2024, Ripple engaged with banks and payment networks in ASEAN. Asian? Is that what it is? Is ASEAN Asian? I didn't want to say it, but I'm saying it. For corridor testing and compliance modes. XRP integration also with 21 shares ETP. I don't know how many people know, but 21 shares got to XRP first, obviously not in North America. Though not a direct on-paper partnership, the 21 shares XRP ETP listed in Europe has institutional implications. Prime brokers and authorized participants engage with custodians and exchanges to facilitate creation and redemption of XRP ETP shares. The custody and license trust builds out in 2024, directly sets up institutions to hold XRP, RLUSD, and tokenized assets with compliance guardrails. And then the brokerage and clearing readiness. Negotiating and integrating prime brokerage infrastructure via Hidden Road was a 2024 operational priority that materialized as Ripple Prime in 2025. As I said, balance sheet exposure, cleared swap derivatives, structured product issuance, all things that they can do now. That's a key partner vector. Though not a specific named commercial partner in 2024, it laid the platform to partner with banks and brokers. On the technical side, XRPL EVM sidechain came to mainnet. Production grade launch, real dApps, DeFi, NFTs, tokenized assets. In 2024, amendments like the XRPL matured in core asset logic. There was batch transaction, fix AMMM v1.3, which basically bug fixes to the AMM rounding auction logic. There was a fix enforce NFT trust lines v2, which prevented certain bypasses in NFT trust lines. Fix pane chain cancel after, which basically blocks creation of expired payment channels via bad field values. These are all things to upgrade the ledger, by the way, just so we're clear. XRPL stayed boring on purpose, guys. Banks and institutions want that. They want deterministic settlement. They want probabilistic finality, no contract level exploits on the settlement rail. These are things that are important. So XRPL does not become Ethereum. Instead, what XRPL EVM sidechain actually enabled was smart contracts without risk to settlement. Bugs, hacks, liquidations stay off the XRPL mainnet. Settlement layer remains pristine. Ethereum liquidity and XRP liquidity. Ethereum developers deploy unchanged contracts. XRP becomes gas, bridge assets, and a liquidity trail. Trying to think. There's a lot I can talk about the EVM, but we'll skip over the EVM.
No,
Anything you guys want to say?
pull up that image I just sent you, Bully, on Discord.
Where did you send this?
Oh shoot, I sent it in the Hustlers. That's all right. No, you don't see it? Not there? Is my internet working in this place?
I got it now.
I got it.
Okay.
Just pulling this up.
Are you working on the Bitcoin?
Well, and
Like
this is just a good visualization of what the EVM sidechain does, right? It will help integrate, okay? And why? Well, when I was talking earlier, we've been talking about it, right? It's banks and institutions, so traditional finance. They're not in the business of spending more money. They're in the business of making it, right? So they're looking at it here and they're saying, okay, well, we're looking at, XRPL does have its own DEX, which was, a common misconception for years. So now that it has that, now it's going to get exploited or exposed, right? And what you're starting to see is that the MPTs, which is something that I did a video on. It's a video on xrpl.org, and you could post it or I could share it in the Discord, but it talks about the MPTs, the multi-purpose tokens, which were created, voted on, and created this year. And yes, although the usage isn't up like it's supposed to be, the fact that it is even there is bullish by all concepts because it was never supposed to be, XRPL and DeFi. It was never supposed to be that. So that's all I have to say on it, but it's going to reduce costs, right? When you have people who are going to say, I'm going to use Sol or I'm going to use XR or I'm going to use the XRPL. Well, Sol's going to charge me X, XRPL is going to charge me this. It's much less. Well, I'm going to use that. It's going to be a choice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But that brings go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. You're good.
That brings us to 2025. 2025, I know people are disappointed. I would encourage you to take a step back and listen to what happened, what Ripple did in 2025, because I guarantee you, years from now, we're going to look back at 2025 and just say, "What? Are you kidding me?" Because it is freaking impressive, even in TradFi. Like in any level of any company, this would be impressive what they pulled off. So it starts with the CME group in May. It launched XRP and micro XRP future contracts, giving institutions regulated exposure via CFTC regulated market. August 25, XRP futures became the fastest contract in CME history to surpass 1 billion in open interest, doing so roughly 3 months after launch. This is now this is now Wall Street saying this is the interest, right? September 18, 2025. What are you doing? You don't want to hear it? You're going to hear it. September 18, 2025, the first US spot XRP ETF, Rex Osprey. This marked a structural expansion for regulated crypto products beyond Bitcoin and Ethereum. October 2025, the XRPR spot ETF reportedly exceeded 100 million in assets under management, showing early institutional capital commitment. ETF inflows, according to aggregated data, tracking inflows, spot XRP ETFs pulled in over 1 billion of net inflows by year-end 2025, demonstrating a robust appetite from institutions, investors, and regulated XRP exposure. The highest day one volume for an ETF in 2025 was XRP, $58 million. In March of 2025, the US Securities and Exchange Commission finally dropped its appeal. That's how long it took. August 2025, the lawsuit was officially dismissed. Ripple agreed to pay a $125 million fine, solidifying the court's mixed 2023 Howey decision. It ends one of the longest and most impactful crypto enforcement action in US history. It clarifies how the Howey test applies to crypto sales. Retail exchange sales are not securities. Targeted institutional sales are. Providing framework for future cases, they may reference that. They also acquired in October, they acquired this small little company, Hidden Road. Do you guys know Hidden Road? Now Ripple Prime? No? Well, let me tell you about them. Ripple completed a $1.25 billion acquisition of Hidden Road, a multi-asset prime broker, and rebranded it Ripple Prime. It offers prime brokerage services, clearing, financing, OTC spot execution for XRP, RLUSD, which we know what that is, and other assets. Ripple becomes the first crypto company to own and operate. Let me repeat this for people who are not listening. Ripple became the first crypto company to own and operate a global multi-asset prime broker. If you hear people saying that Ripple or XRP is Fugazi, you need to stop listening to them, based only on what I just said. This directly addresses institutional needs. It clears execution, margining, collateral management, and integration with FX and derivatives. RLUSD is already being used as collateral for derivative products, showing real utility beyond payments. Digital asset spot prime brokerage. Ripple Prime launched institutional OTC spot trading capabilities in the US, integrating XRP and RLUSD into cross-margin portfolios along major digital assets. This makes Ripple Prime a full suite institutional trading platform, enabling cross-asset execution, cross-margining between XRP, stablecoins, and other tokens, and integration with cleared derivatives. Example CME futures and others, but we're only going to talk about things that are black and white. RLUSD, Ripple's US dollar-backed stablecoin, grew in prominence during 2025. It is now, am I right in saying it's the 5th largest stablecoin? Gentlemen?
Yes, it's in the top five. I know it's in the top
it
five.
went over 1.25 billion already in market cap.
It's all right. It's not, there's room to grow, but I like
Cool,
it.
Billy.
Yeah.
Cool, Billy.
It's used as collateral in prime brokerage. That's the RLUSD. Products offered by Ripple Prime reportedly ranked highly in stability and governance by industry sources. Pretty sure. What is the website that rates stablecoins?
Oh, I was just looking at this. I know that they gave them an A plus, an A rating.
Correct.
I could find it.
Now,
Someone says
I
on the
will say-
top in chat
hold on.
4th.
I will say this though. That is like a separate entity, right? It's not like a global standard. That's not like, ISO or something, right? It's just a place that does ratings.
It's like Michelin. Sort of. Without. RWA XYZ says number 10.
RLUSD or the XRPL?
I'm going to say.
It's a good question.
We're talking about RLUSD right now, so I'm assuming MMG.crypto says is talking about that. Okay, so meanwhile, acquisitions in 2025. They acquired, remember how we talked at the very beginning about a Canadian Ryan Fugger? Well, they also acquired a Canadian Toronto company called Rail, a stablecoin infrastructure platform that strengthens compliance and banking integrations. Rail, I don't remember the number. Do you guys remember how much of the stablecoins Rail processes? It's significant.
I believe it's like 70%.
That seems high. So can you look it up while I keep continue? I really do want to know that number. I'm just proud of us Toronto people. We have a crappy hockey team now. I'm going to start cheering on the stablecoin market. Ripple also acquired G Treasury, a corporate treasury management provider supporting institutional workflows. 10%. That sounds better. Thanks, Michael.
Sorry, I'm a liar.
Imagine it processed all of USD.
I can no longer view RWA.
I know. I thought the same thing. We're not going to get into it right now. Hard.
Okay, cool. You're right. So, but that's not the point of like what we were talking about, right? The stable coin and it being top 5, top 10, whatever.
They did well in 1 year.
Continue.
G Treasury. Euro XM Bank uses RippleNet rails for trade finance and cross-border settlement. Lemonway in France again, European payments provider integrating Ripple technology. Currency, which is in the UK, cross-border payments and liquidity provider leveraging RippleNet. Sokin, which is in UK as well, formerly Ripple partner before rebranding, connected remittances and FX through Ripple Rails. Money Match in Malaysia, licensed e-money provider using RippleNet Rails for payment corridors. Sumitomo Mitsui Banking Corporation, say that 10 times fast, participates in Japanese cross-border payment pilots. Mitsubishi UFJ Financial Group, engagement in RippleNet experiments. MoneyTap in Japan, mobile payment app leveraging XRP Ledger features for peer payments under joint venture with SBI. No, thank you, MMG. I appreciate that. MoneyTap International evolved offerings for cross-border retail payments. Zendit in Indonesia integrated with RippleNet Rails for fast settlement in emerging Asian markets. These are all things that they partnered or are working with or piloting in 2025, just so we're clear. Network International PayTabs, MENA, worked with RippleNet to enable cross-border payouts and on-ramp and off-ramp services. EasyPay in the Gulf region, leveraging Ripple for remittance integrations. Credit unions and payments cooperatives exploring cross-border settlement efficiencies. Custody providers, NDX, Wise Banyan, enabling XRP access and payment rails for institutional clients. In the USA, Banco Santander US historically communicated participation with RippleNet for FX settlement pathways. Standard Custody and Trust Company, acquired by Ripple, not a partner per se, but a critical institution integration. Medical Custody, Ripple integrated tech, used as regulated institutional custody backbone. Hidden Road, we already talked about. Late 2025, this is one that Be the Change loves. Ripple raised some money from some major Wall Street investors.
Citadel and Fortress.
Brevin Howard, Marshall Wace, Pantera Capital, Galaxy Digital. How much? 500 million, right? That's how much they raised?
Yeah.
Evaluating Ripple at approximately 40 billion. What do you think the significance, guys, of that, of those people coming on board, investing, and where? Yeah, what's the significance? Let's start with that.
I mean, they're just Citadel, like, to understand that. This is going to be such a good exercise for the chat. Look up what Citadel and Fortress do. Yeah, we can tell you about it, but this is, there's so many smart people in this room. So once you start to understand that what these players are doing in the world of Wall Street, you're going to understand how big of a move this is. And what was hilarious is that the timing of the announcement happened at Ripple Swell. All anyone wanted to talk about was MasterCard. No one wanted to talk about Citadel and Fortress, which literally provide liquidity to the stock market. That's what they do. So I have a little piece here I can just share. Citadel Securities is not a venture capitalist. It's a market maker. And their businesses only exist where there is regulatory clarity, sufficient liquidity, institutional demand, and durable market structure. Fortress is not a retail-facing firm. It allocates capital to infrastructure, systems that move reliably over long periods of time. These firms do not participate early. They participate when the rules are written and the rails are real. So their involvement in the broader digital asset ecosystem coincides with court-established legal clarity, congressional framework like the Genius and the Clarity Act, ETF approval, federally supervised stablecoin models, and bank-grade custody for prime brokerage. This timing isn't accidental. It reflects a shift away from speculative crypto markets towards regulated financial infrastructure. Someone earlier mentioned that Ripple is building a tech stack. This is how it will work. So now this isn't a, Citadel didn't stand on the top of the world and say we're only using XRP. Okay, so you need to understand that. But the fact it is that they are even having the discussion with this organization and not any others. These guys settle. I think it's 40%, if my math is right, 40% of all daily stock trades, which is somewhere north of like $250 billion a day. So for XRP to even be thought about to be used, right, in that subject, you would have to have a few things. You'd have to have deep liquidity. You'd have to have legal survivability. you'd have to have compatibility with institutional risk systems, and you would have to have neutrality across issuers, jurisdictions, and countries. So this is like literally a maturity phase. And that's not hype, which is the reason why no one cared about it. No one cares about this.
I guess.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Please go.
No, and so that is your tech stack, right? You've got retail discovery, early conviction, Ripple's building the infrastructure. We sat there, we watched it go through the course, the cases, all these people that are in here. I mean, you know, if you're new, you're new, but if you've been here for some time, you obviously understand. And then it had to be integrated with the banks and the governments. We talked about all these banks and governments all over the world, market makers and asset managers. That is full adoption stack getting ready. So Citadel, Fortress, working in support of what is happening over at Ripple is probably one of the most important signals we have.
Agreed. I guess you can't go through 2025 without talking about a tweet by the president. For those who missed it, on March 2nd, 2025, Donald Trump said, "A U.S. crypto reserve will elevate this critical industry after years of corrupt attacks by Biden administration, which is why my executive order on digital assets directed the presidential working group to move forward on a crypto strategic reserve that includes XRP, Solana, and Cardano, ADA," he says. "I will make sure the U.S. is the crypto capital of the world. We are making America great again." To your knowledge, is the executive order still standing? Has it been ripped
The
up?
strategic reserve?
I honestly, I haven't heard anything. I really haven't heard anything about it.
It's important, like, okay, in any other presidency, these words we're reading right here, what I just said would be should be law, right? I don't want to say this is BS, and I don't want to say this is going to be literal, but it is in black and white in front of all of us. It is clearly stated that they are going to have a crypto strategic reserve. He didn't say strategic, he said crypto reserve, but that's okay. And so let's see where that goes after clarity. That's all I'll say with that one. I can't give you any more than that. I did want to mention it because it's important. It is valid to 2025. I do want to talk about a couple other things, gentlemen, and it kind of will put you on the spot a little bit, maybe potentially. Proof of connections. So things that are FUD, things that are real, things we know to be true. The three that I want to talk about with you guys is the DTCC, the BIS, and the IMF.
Before we get into that, can I just give a really quick summary to everything you just said? Right?
Absolutely.
By 2025, if you haven't been paying attention to the last hour and a half of what Caveman broke down every single partnership and integration, at the very least, understand that that Ripple is moving into a multitude of different sectors, right? You got the payments technology, you got the liquidity tools, the institutional custody, stablecoins tokenization, and they are engaging in global regulations. All of that, XRP sits in the middle as the potential liquidity bridge for all of that. It's not just a payment solution company anymore. They are literally becoming a tech stack. Go ahead.
Right. Sorry. DTCC. What do you guys, if anything, what do you have to say with regards to Ripple, XRP, and the DTCC, if anything, at this point?
Well, they do have a patent. You can see this here from the DTCC, and it was, let's see, I do believe they were mentioned in figure 17.
Is that patent the digital liquidity token?
Maybe it wasn't figure 17. They are mentioned in a patent. I don't think I was prepared to find this patent, but there is a digital liquidity patent as well.
Now, just because it's a patent doesn't mean it's adoption. But yeah, there is that patent which I wanted to showcase at least. Other than that, with Be the Change, do you have anything you want to say about DTC, or are you off camera?
Yeah, I'm off camera. I'm just waiting for my food to show up.
Nice.
Yeah, the DTCC, I mean, they did a pilot program at the start of this year that was video proof that they had worked with several of chains, XRPL being one of them, I believe XLM, and I forget what the third one was. I know that they were working with Chainlink too as well.
Okay. BIS.
What's the FUD though? What's the FUD? I gotta know what the FUD is.
Well, let's put a pause on that one. We're not going to open up Pandora's box yet. BIS. The reports that Ripple and BIS Innovation Hub would collaborate on CBDC interoperability assessment work using XRP into Ledger. BIS also publishes extensive CBDC project work, generally separate from Ripple. The takeaway from that is essentially what I would say. I'd love to know if you guys think differently. Is treat BIS collaboration as a credible but scope limited unless you have BIS primary artifact naming Ripple in a project page. Do you have anything else you want to say regarding BIS and if they're working together in any projects and or mentioned it? I think I saw Brooke there earlier. Brooke, do you have anything you want to say about BIS?
So you have to think about this too, right? So inherently, as an organization like the IMF or the Bank of International Settlements, they can't choose or namely state what it is that they're using. They're going to be piloting a lot of things. They're seeing what's coming around with Canton, right? That is another pilot, right? That's another, they're testing. If you go to the Bank of International Settlements website, there's all kinds of projects. Project Meridian, there's project, I think it was Titus. There's all different types of projects that they have. Really, the evidence is clear that they're using distributed ledger technology. It will be an interoperable world. History, a long-standing history of the XRPL and or Ripple looking to work with these institutions, right, and solving these large-scale problems.
Project Agora too, right? Brooke just posted that. IMF, there is an IMF hosted presentation deck stating Ripple was selected to serve on the IMF FinTech Advisory Group. It's not necessarily an endorsement, but there is talk about it.
And I think another thing needs to be stated too, right? Like, we still need the digital market structure bill to come out, become law, in order for these things to all be legal.
Wormhole. Let's talk about Wormhole. I think he's in the elevator. This is a big one for him. He loves Wormhole.
I am in the elevator. Hold on.
I know. You love wormholes. In my mind, he's currently eating one of those jube worms. He's like, yeah, it's time. Let's do it.
He's eating a what?
You know those like jube worms, like the jelly worms, the long one?
Yeah, they're called gummies.
Whatever. So let's talk about wormhole.
All right, hold on. I'm coming.
Let me sit down here.
Oh, yeah, green screen only. Hold on.
Are we starting this show over again?
Yep.
All right.
Can't find the old one.
It's okay.
This one.
I like it.
Yeah, there we go.
Nice.
Couldn't find the old one. It was old. Wormhole. Wormhole integrates DeFi in a huge way. You also have, what I think is a lot of support from the head or the creator of Wormhole in support of this project, in support of the XRPL, and understands that it is going to be required in order for TradFi and DeFi to integrate, right? It opens up the door for more applications, right? It opens up the door for more things to be built. I think in the first week they had like some insane amount of smart contracts that were created through that platform. And it was a question that I had for the Kwok brothers over at EZA, was why no one was building on the XRPL, and it had nothing to do with tech. It had nothing to do with anything other than it wasn't really cool to build on a banker ledger until it is, right? Until you realize that you need it, right? So Wormhole gives that access to, fundamentally one of the larger ecosystems, in it being Ethereum.
This is currently from January 2nd on Wormhole's X account. Wormhole is connected to a lot of things, not just Ripple. Ripple, it says national bank grade oversight is the future of stablecoins. Ripple is executing that vision with RLUSD. With at NYDFS state oversight and conditional federal at USOCC approval, Ripple sets the highest standard for stablecoin compliance. Now going multi-chain and powered by Wormhole NTT.
Trillions.
Just saying. For all the people who just
and the market itself, right? What are we looking at here? The 3 trillion, right? I think at the top we saw 4 trillion in terms of all of crypto. Excuse me. But there was a number thrown out there. It was called, this came from Ondo, $867 trillion of assets could be tokenized. So I don't care if someone's tokenized 1 trillion or 5 trillion, 6 trillion. There's 867 trillion that could be potentially tokenized.
So JP Morgan, my notes are already out of date because my note says here, no public Ripple JP Morgan partnership or connection. We all know that ain't true.
We do know that's not true.
What happened?
They chose GT Treasury. I partnered with GT Treasury.
With
I know, I forget it too. Templeton Energy, something like that. Franklin Energy, a
$2 billion company.
Yeah, $2 billion
for remittances.
Tiny company.
Very small, which is interesting because JP Morgan runs its own blockchain. Connexus Onyx.
That's true.
Network. Um, just saying. And JP Morgan is a early participant in Fed Now, which is also something that I find fairly interesting. Van Eck.
Oh yeah. What? There's a lot of things that were never going to happen that are happening too.
Correct.
Vanguard being another one.
BlackRock being another one.
Mm.
But let's talk about Van Eck first. Direct tokenized funds and redemption path via RLUSD. Confirmed, by the way, in case anyone was wondering. Ripple and Securitize enabled RLUSD functionality tied to Van Eck's V-Bill, tokenized fund. So eligible holders can swap redemption into RLUSD in that setup. We just mentioned BlackRock. Anybody want to talk about BlackRock?
I just want to talk about how Robbie Mitchnick, who is the head of digital assets, used to work at Ripple. That's all.
Weird.
Indirect partnerships through Securitize.
Robbie Mitchnick. Say it with me, Robbie Mitchnick.
Love Robbie. You're right, Bully. Enabled RLUSD functionality for BlackRock's Build tokenized fund. It's not them building, obviously it's not BlackRock building everything on the XRPL, but it is a specific disclosed integration and tokenized funds on the RLUSD rail. We talked about DTCC, BIS. What about Swift? What happened to Swift? They still exist? They still functioning? Are we still breathing over there in Swift land?
I don't know. They're piloting the program at this stage of the game.
I'm sorry. How long has Ripple been working on building out this infrastructure? We went back to 2016, right?
12,
2013.
really. Yeah, 12, 13.
Right. Fed Now. Okay, what we didn't talk about this really. We kind of alluded to it, but what are the things that Ripple applied for this year? Anybody want to talk about those?
Well, they know they applied for the Fed Master account through not Medico, probably through the custody standard
BNY.
custody. And then I think they were granted the Ripple Bank, right? The trust license. They also
National?
had 50. They also had 50 remittance licenses too. So I don't know if we even talked about that. I could have been zoning out at that point.
I didn't.
There's 50 remittance licenses. What else did they apply for?
I think those are the two.
Okay.
What is the for you guys? What is the importance of the Fed Master account?
It gives them access to the same liquidity banks get.
Yep. Federal Reserve's liquidity.
That and whoever is the new Fed chair, was that announced?
No, but they got rid of the person who's anti-crypto. I
I
forget
did
her
see
name.
that. Carolyn Crenshaw.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Appreciate you, Counter Crypto. Hey guys, 1 second reset. 256,000 lights, 142 people in here. You guys have been here almost the whole time. We've been going on for some hours here. Thank you for spending your Sunday night with us. BNY connected because they are custodying our LUSD. Should we just open it up to chat discussions, or should I say this one thing? It's probably gonna is the updated "if I were you then" thesis.
Do it.
Okay. So this is a forward-looking thesis. No, I'm not telling you to buy I'm not telling you, I'm not a financial advisor. This is just based on the information that we're looking at and have been talking about this entire time. XRP should be evaluated as a digital liquidity instrument positioned within a growing regulated financial stack, not a speculative payment token competing for retail attention. Recent developments indicate a structural shift. Regulatory clarity is emerging that aligns XRP with commodity treatment. Ripple is building institutional grade infrastructure, not consumer crypto products. Tokenization, stablecoins, and compliant settlement rails are converging. XRP's role increasingly centers on cross-asset liquidity routing, not branding or forced adoption. If this trajectory continues, XRP's value proposition becomes systemic rather than narrative driven. For crypto assets to financial infrastructure, the XRPL was architected for deterministic settlement, low cost transfers, high reliability, minimal governance ambiguity. These properties align more closely with financial market infrastructure than with general purpose applications. As regulation matures, markets tend to separate application layers or innovational and experimentation from settlement layers, which is stable and predictable. The XRPL is increasingly positioned in the latter category. Regulatory inflection, commodity classification changes the equation. Confirmation momentum around the Clarity Act and broader U.S. market structure reform materially alters XRP's addressable market. If XRP is treated as a digital commodity, oversight shifts away from securities frameworks, institutional participation expands via compliant venues, derivatives, hedging, and secured product becomes viable, price discovery deepens, and liquidity stabilizes. This reframes XRP as market-driven liquidity and not a company-issued instrument. That distinction is foundational for long-term integration into regulated finance. The infrastructure builder is what Ripple's evolving role is increasingly operating as an enterprise software provider, a custody settlement integrator, a stablecoin issuer, and a tokenized and interoperability partner. This evolution matters because institutions adopt stacks, not standalone tokens. Compliance first design lowers integration friction, and XRP benefits indirectly when embedded as native liquidity within these systems. Critically, Ripple's growth does not require XRP maximalism, it requires economic usefulness. On the subject of stablecoins and tokenization is reinforcing, not replacing XRP. The emergence of RLUSD and institutional tokenization does not inherently diminish XRP's relevance. Instead, it creates deeper on-chain liquidity pools, more frequent cross-asset conversions, 24/7 settlement environments, and in these systems, stablecoins handle unit of account, tokenization assets represents value storage, and XRP functions as a neutral routing liquidity. This mirrors traditional foreign exchange markets where reserve currencies coexist with bridge instruments rather than eliminates them. The liquidity function where XRP's value is actually captured. XRP's long-term value capture is most sensitive to transaction velocity, corridor usage, cross-asset routing volume, and derivatives depth. It is not consumer branding, number of announcements, or speculative cycles. If institutional flows increasingly require fast conversion between tokenized assets, neutral collateral, and predictable settlement, XRP's design characteristics remains structurally relevant. The reality, institutional adoption does not resemble consumer adoption. It progresses through infrastructure integration, pilot testing, limited production corridors, balance sheet exposure, and standardization. Each phase reduces risk, but also reduces visibility. XRP's development path aligns with this model, which explains why progress appears understated while underlying integration deepens. Now, these are risk factors. It's a conditional infrastructure bet. XRP is transitioning from a narrative asset to a functional liquidity component within regulated digital finance. Its success depends less on persuasion, promotion, and retail enthusiasm, and more on regulatory clarity, liquidity efficiency, interoperability, and market structure evolution. In that environment, outcomes tend to be gradual, nonlinear, and durable. XRP represents strategic exposure to the maturation of regulated tokenized financial markets. As clarity around digital commodity classification emerges and institutional infrastructure solidifies, XRP's roles as a neutral cross-asset liquidity becomes increasingly plausible. This is not a short cycle trade, it is a long horizon bet on the settlement efficiency in a multi-asset digital economy.
Ladies and gentlemen, pros and cons,
I love it.
right?
And in case you thought that Ripple was done with all their acquisitions, I laugh in your general direction. Ready? Trident Digital Tech Holdings, which is on NASDAQ, announced $500 million XRP Treasury strategy. Webis International filed SEC disclosures showing intent to build an XRP reserve for $300 million. Vivo Power International. So these things aren't acquisitions. These things are treasuries or company treasuries. They announced plans. So Vivo Power announced plans to dedicate $100 million to XRP holdings. Wellgistics Health reported early XRPL treasury exposure. And Nature's Miracle Holding wants to announce a 20 million XRP exposure. Hyperscale Data Inc. has disclosed a smaller XRPL balance sheet. Work Sport Limited also on their balance sheet. And the one that I really wanted to talk about that we were gonna miss was Bitnomio. I talked about it before. I don't think people realize how important this is. Bitnomial Exchange on November 4th, they announced, which is the Bitnomial Clearinghouse, a US CFTC regulated derivatives exchange and clearing organization, announced the institutional clients can use RLUSD and XRP as margin collateral for leveraged perpetuals, futures, and options. I don't know if people fully understand what I just said. But for anybody who thinks that XRP and RLUSD is not going to be used for stock market at the DTCC, they already approved it at Bitnomial. They literally have approved it. So RLUSD and XRP were added as margin collateral, literally required, meaning traders can post them to support leverage positions in Bitnomial's regulated trading and clearing infrastructure. Why this matters? I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. And then the other thing that we almost missed, Evernorth Holding Inc. I want you to talk about Evernorth, Bully. She's a beast.
Yeah, essentially, Evernorth is going to be I'm assuming a Fortune 500 company that's essentially going to be the first financial tech stack to really leverage Ripple's products. I'm not so sure. Honestly, I saw something with David Schwartz. I don't believe he actually went to Evernorth. He became a CFO somewhere else. That is a Ripple-related product. We could go into that as well. But Evernorth, in the very simplest terms, think of it the same way as Michael Saylor's micro strategy is to Bitcoin. It's going to be the micro strategy to Ripple.
As far as treasury goes.
Yes.
But they're going further with Evernorth than just a treasury. Which is, I love that they are, like people who say, we're just dumping XRP on you poor peasants. No, they're re-anting. They're anting up to say, hey, no, we're going all in with making not only the XRPL, but XRP a real thing. Their commitment was to increase the ecosystem, DeFi. Anything else, Billy?
Lending liquidity.
Yep. Passive holding, market activities, capital market activities. Oh, also, guys, just so we know, Ripple invested, SBI Holdings. Remember that Japanese company we talked about a couple times? Pantera Capital, Kraken, We also talked about them a couple times. GSR and Chris Larson. They all invested. 1 billion in gross proceeds from all of these guys. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Guys, I appreciate you for listening. I appreciate you guys for being here. This was a doozy. I understand. And I'm skipping over things to, November 2025. So we're close to the end here, guys. Abu Dhabi's FSRA recognized Ripple RLUSD as an accepted fiat reference token for institutional use in ADGM. Not full UAE-wide fiat currency status, but a massive, that's crazy. Ripple recently also received a license from Dubai Financial Services Authority, allowing it to offer digital payment services legally in Dubai. This license means Ripple can now provide services like on-demand liquidity. The UAE is a global hub for outbound finance with 400 billion plus market for international trade. Ripple partnered with the ABSA Bank to bring institutional digital asset custody to South Africa as well. And Ripple has partnered with an African financial technology firm, Chipper Cash, which I absolutely love that name.
Yeah, don't forget this one. Dubai Land Department.
Do it.
Yeah, man, the UAE is huge. Those partnerships out, and you got to look at what's going on. The fact is, what was the announcement? Remember, I'm testing my memory here, but wasn't Trump in Abu Dhabi, or he was in Saudi at the same time that Ripple was getting some agreements and some deals done out there?
Yeah,
Yeah. Do you have that on your paper? I forget the name.
I don't.
Okay.
Unfortunately, there's a lot.
There's a lot. There's a lot of things to talk about.
Yeah. I think another thing that people don't realize, I think when you think of Africa, you think like just safari and stuff. Africa is a $329 billion cross-border payments potential. Africa is big. I mean, we know it's big, but it's also a good market. So the fact that they're in there with all of these entities, absolutely amazing. We're gonna go away from the technical stuff because you guys, there's no devs in here right now. And then the last thing I wanted to say, which is the thing we said at the beginning, guys, Brad Garlinghouse house. XRP sits at the center of everything Ripple does.
Not that XRP does, right, though? Or the XRPL?
No,
What Ripple does.
XRP sits at the center of everything Ripple does. Be the Change said, if Ripple as a company went away, XRP would continue to trade. To me, this is from Brad Garlinghouse. To me, that's the definition of decentralization. There is so much more. That is it. We can talk about Basel III. We can talk about Project Ion. We could go on with a bunch of other discussions. But that is, in essence, the things that Ripple has been up to since 2000 and we'll go real 13.
Now we need the cons, ladies and gentlemen.
Let's hear the cons.
My biggest issue is that XRP doesn't necessarily need to always be utilized. Right? It's not required in every single Ripple product. Ripple does the messaging tools, the custody, stable coins. It's only required where XRP is required, right? So there's this misconception that more Ripple adoption equals more XRP usage. Not necessarily true. XRP is the liquidity tool. It's not a mandatory toll booth.
My con is industry wide. If we become a stablecoin system, which I actually don't agree, I don't believe, but if we become a stablecoin system, then all of this is for nothing. There will be no appreciation. If we also don't get adoption universally, globally, then this is for nothing. We will not make any money. Those are my two cons. Again, I don't believe it, but those are my
I mean, one of my biggest cons was the Ripple net one,
cons. Agreed.
as it is for so many. Um, but you have to think again in terms of what was being used at the time legally to what can be used in the future, and all of these things that are being built as a whole. It's just. I think the biggest con for XRP, unfortunately, happens to be the $10,000 XRP price predictions. That's the only con really that I have with it, because you could say Bitcoin goes to $2 million. You could say that Ethereum's going to $55,000. You could say all these things, but the moment that someone brings up that XRP will go up in price, something really strange happens. So the biggest con for me is that when you're invested in this asset, you're gonna get probably treated a certain way from people that don't agree with you. But who cares?
Regarding the stablecoin thing, there is a reason why I made a video called about the Triffin dilemma that nobody wants to talk about. It is a real thing. So in a world where we have universal adoption for utility and a shit ton of stablecoins everywhere, and people are on islands unto themselves, and corporations have stablecoins, and everyone's using the stablecoin. That's great. Now you need to bridge it, and for me, that is so. The Triffin dilemma is the need or the fight between being a world currency and deflationary at home. Well, if it's going to be a world currency, you can't be. It's a global network of value, right? Or global network of networks. And so you have to have the value be able to bridge across those networks. And there goes the friction, and there goes the liability of having a deflationary economy, because it's not dependent on one country providing that world currency. So you don't have that fight. And I think that's probably the number one thing that goes for XRP. That right there is the essence of why people might want to get into this investment.
Outstanding job to Caveman Fantasy. He took the ball and fucking ran 377 yards with that motherfucker. Chat, throw one in the chat for Caveman. He went above and beyond. He went through every single year, every single acquisition, every single partnership, why it mattered. I don't even think I could have done better myself, man. You did an absolutely stand-up job for that. That was honestly insane. He woke up out of nowhere and said, I'm going to put him in the ground.
For me, so like most of the time, I take an approach with XRP for exactly what Be the Change said. People are going to look a certain way at you when you talk about this investment, and so as a result, I think I always fight this because and you guys know this because we're friends, you and the three of us. I want to be inclusive. I want to be inclusive. I want us as a community to be together, and so I tend to take the back seat with XRP and Ripple in conversations, not because I'm ashamed or because I don't want to talk about it, but because I want to create a safe space for people to talk, whether I like them or not, whether I agree with them or not. And there's many times, guys, I don't agree with them, or I don't even necessarily have to like you. But the importance is the conversation and to have that that banter in a healthy space. When you guys decided to go with XRP this week, part of me was like, oh, fuck, because like, you know what's gonna happen. It happened. You saw it. Everyone saw it. But also, like, there's a lot to cover, more so than any other project. Maybe like I could probably do the same thing with Ethereum. We could probably do the same thing with Chainlink. So please don't vote on those two for next week. And if you do, these two are going to be doing it, not me. I'll sit here and listen. But I know, but for real, there are projects out there in the top. I'm just joking, of course. You can vote on whatever you want. But there are projects out there that have the meat and potatoes, and who have gone through the gamut of what it takes to build a blockchain and what it takes for a company to be absolutely on point with building out this infrastructure. Ripple is one of them, and you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't say, yeah, man, Ripple's great. What the fuck, XRP? What's that going to be? It doesn't work. It's either Ripple is great and you agree with, and therefore the people who are in charge are people that you know, trust, and love. Maybe don't love. Who cares about loving? Know and trust. And that what they are saying is true for many reasons. And if the person, the head of the person says to you, XRP is at the center of everything we do, then you should probably listen to that person. That's what I think. And if you don't, that's okay too. Bully's going to be funny and say you're going to eat a Cobb salad. Be the Change is going to roll his eyes. And I'm just going to sit there and go, okay. Because you know what? At the end of the day, it's not your money. It's not my money. Like, you can invest whatever you want. We're only here to provide the information. And that's what this show is about. And this show was 12,047 words, 74 pages. We didn't talk about 74 pages. But we did talk about the things that were really important. And I hope that you took something from this, all of it, everybody. You guys got anything to say before we vote?
You know what would be cool is if you would send me those pages, so when I do upload it onto YouTube, there is something for people to read if they would like to. That's your decision.
I don't mind. Absolutely. And guys, thank you for those likes. Damn. Although English, you're over by 100, but it's okay. Okay. So
Get to tapping. If you ain't yapping, get to tapping.
any questions, guys, before we vote? And by questions, I mean
vote.
real questions. This has been a long one, and it's 11 o'clock. Okay, forget no questions. Ask us questions next week. Guys, it's time to vote. 143 of you guys are here. Please do not double up on your votes. Just once in chat. Canton.
It's Canton. It's been Canton for a while. Good job.
Oh, BTC, I like that. Actually, not next week. Give me a week. Give us a week.
I like gag.
Do we stop the vote right now?
Jet Life, I'll do one specifically
I
for
think
just
so.
for you, bro.
You know what's crazy though is we've seen more Bitcoin votes in here than we ever have.
I like it. I'm 100% on board. Although right now I've got 10, 12, 18
And
votes.
For reference, for all of you guys, when you see that the creator of Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto, is in the chat, that's really not Satoshi Nakamoto.
Really?
That's a guy who lives in a trailer.
Um,
Straight up, go look at his page. He lives in a buggy trailer. I'm not joking.
Okay. I don't even need to do this anymore. Canton, you win. Canton Network is being done next week. by a landslide. Which means we don't have to talk about Canton Network and XRP tonight. We can talk about it next week. Wowzers. Does anybody want to have anything to say? Does anybody want to come up, have a quick conversation, ask a question before we wrap this up?
You knew I had to come up.
Hello, Rico.
I'm making a simple request if I could. If maybe at the end of y'all spill next week on Canton, if I could be a certified player on in y'all's world for Canton.
You got my vote.
Rico, you wanna come up and talk about Canton next week?
Of course.
All right.
I would love to.
All right.
If I could. I gave Caveman some ammunition. Did you get a chance to see it?
I'm 40 minutes in, or 35 minutes in.
Yeah.
It's serious.
I've looked into it.
Yeah, it's serious, isn't it?
We're going to talk about it next week.
Okay.
Yeah, it's speculative for sure.
Cool.
But yeah, well, I'm looking at it with the same lens I look at everything else. Facts, figures, numbers, logic, and then
Facts, figures, numbers, and logic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not my information, but it definitely put a big light bulb in my head. I did do some surface dive into it, and the things that I did look at seem to be realistic, but you never know. And that's why I gave it to Caveman, because I knew he would be a lot more objective than me being excited. So, but yeah, I would love to at the end of y'all spill come up and have that discussion, because if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and if I'm right, I'm right. But I would like to know what y'all's opinions are. You guys are covering a lot of good stuff, and your expose tonight on XRP was class fucking act. There's no way in one sitting anybody could have compiled so much information. And I ate dinner with you guys, and then decided to get up and talk. In the chat. Shit, I didn't think you guys were going to stop. I just thought you were going to keep going. There was a lot of information that you kept covering, and the three of you timed it. I think is amazing. We don't give enough credit to people just speaking. And although your topics are decided, from the audience and all that, the mere fact that this was covered in a very classy way, and it's hard to do. It's you could have a lot of bias on any project, but just to report it and shoot it straight, I give you guys a lot of fucking props. All three of you. And it's not just on XRP. I want to say that on any of the things that you've brought to surface, it's been non-biased. It's been on point. And I think that you are doing a great service to the community versus being whack jobs and hack jobs. You guys have just been coming in and delivering the news. And anybody that has a voice in this whole community, I think you should give him more support. I mean, honestly, because nobody does it like you three. And that is classy, no matter what.
Thanks, Rico.
So I'm thankful
Appreciate
and I'm not associated with you guys in any way. So don't let me bring my drama to your platform or any kind of bullshit, because I do know how to get it started. But I just want to say I appreciate all three of you, and you have become a place for me on a Sunday to want to come and listen. You know what I'm saying? And that gives a lot of credit to you three, because you do the damn thing. So
we can't end this live without bringing up XRP Queen.
oh, definitely,
We
she's
have to
here.
figure out. She's here.
Come on.
I don't know if we can. Yeah, she says her name. Maya, request.
You
her.
need me to step down?
No.
Okay.
Get up here.
Hello, Maya.
Hey, how's everyone doing?
Absolutely wonderful now that you're here.
Hey, Maya.
You guys are too kind. How's I hope your Christmas and New Year's was great.
Absolutely wonderful. Spent it with fam.
It went well, guys. For those of you
Yours
guys
was too.
who don't know, Maya and her husband Chris are behind the documentary "Rig from the Start." It was. If you haven't seen it, please, Maya, where can they see it?
You can see it on all of the major platforms: Apple, Amazon, Google Play, iTunes, and Tubi, as well as on our website, Fruition Productions. So
Give me the one-liner or the two-liner, like the elevator pitch for that documentary.
well, if you want drama, if you want one of the biggest crimes of all time, it's kind of what I like about it. It's kind of a crime, series. It keeps you, on edge, but it's about, just involves crypto, involves, China, foreign affairs, and our own U.S. government, along with Wall Street, and just kind of talks about the SEC's war on crypto and one of the biggest scandals that occurred. So,
Rigged from the Start is his name.
Right from the start, yeah, it was amazing.
Yes,
Must
we
watch. And what does it cost on Amazon? Where is it available at right now,
it's
Maya?
it's on Amazon, it's on Apple or iTunes, Google Play, Tubi, and our own website. So it is, it's I think $4.99 to rent and then $9.99 to buy.
I was in it.
Rico's in it. Yep,
Yes,
exactly.
So
Rico
is
is in
Brooke.
it. Yep, and Brooke. Yep, got Echo, Aquaman. Got some major people in there. So, but thank you.
And you are, you're up here. So let's just talk a little bit about your next documentary, which I know every single one of us are going to want to see. I guarantee it. What's it called?
It is called Money Disrupted, and it's about the formation of the Federal Reserve, about the history of it. We bring in, how a few of these powerful elite or wealthy bankers or businessmen came together and formed the Federal Reserve. We talk about the history of it, all the way from kind of way back from the I'm trying to think. It talks about all the way up until now, and kind of the history of why, why it's not working, the future of it, and kind of the fall of it. So I was going to say the Civil War. Yeah, we go back to 18 something all the way through 2025 and what to expect with the future of finance. So
The trailer of it was it gave me like goosebumps. I think I actually even posted it on my page because the trailer was eye opening. Very excited for that.
thank you. Was it the trailer or was it the chapter preview?
It was it must have been 5 minutes long, so I don't know which one it was, but there was going through the night before Christmas Eve.
Yes, that was the chapter 3. It was about 7 minutes. It was just a preview of, it was for the, the date of 112 years to the date of December 23rd when it was formed. So, but thank you. Appreciate it.
I love it.
I'm glad you guys enjoyed it.
For a second, can you talk about the LA premiere? Because I haven't heard. I'm wanting to go. I know
Yes.
Brooke and I talked about it last week because her son came up and got a haircut from me. But I know that you have a lot more premieres, but the LA premiere I'm definitely interested in.
Yes, we are. I mean, we're still in the midst of, we were planning on doing everything in December, but due to the holidays and Avatar, we just figured it would be better to release the film sometime end of January, beginning of February. We are still getting all of that together with the theaters, but the LA one is going to be more of a production, like red carpet kind of a event. I know Mr. Griffin is going to be there. We're going to try and get Robert Kawasaki there, and it's going to be a bigger production since we are from LA. It's a lot easier to do it.
I'm getting my
from-
suit tailored.
There you go. There you go.
I just need a date.
Yeah, we will let everyone know what the dates are. We still are working on all of that. So right now, I know Chris is just trying to finish the film. So
Well,
yeah.
I was hoping to squeeze a date, some type of idea out of you, because I know we get these updates in a New York Minute instead of LA Times.
Right. Yeah, I don't have a date for you right now. We are just working with the theaters, but really it's about when Chris can get the film done.
So guys, I used to be a producer, and I know a little bit of what it takes to create a project. And I don't want to speak out of turn here, but for the 147 people who are here, Maya and Chris are absolutely two of the most amazing people you will ever meet. They are doing this out of pocket. There's no like big studio behind them. Like this is their passion project and they're putting their money up. So if you can, like this isn't a sponsored, by the way. Like we just know each other. We're just friends. If you can support, please do so. And support goes a long way. Like support can just be posting up like the chapter or the preview. It can be mentioning it, talking about it. It can be renting it or buying it when it comes out, as opposed to streaming it for free, because they want to recoup their investment and hopefully make some money. That's it is they're in the business of making films. So please support them.
And every dollar that we get back, we put into the next project, which the next one we are going to be kind of what's it called? We're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about both. Yeah, I will say it. It is. It's about the Hunter Biden laptop and about the Biden crime family, and we're going to be kind of talking about both projects at the same time. We do have something occurring on the 8th in regards to just it's a private event for like donors and angel investors and people, but it's going to be exciting because we have major interviews there as well, and that will be coming out July or so. But yeah, that one's interesting because we have politicians, we have FBI, as well as IRS, CIA, whistleblowers, and that, and media, right? Major media, journalists, and people from all just the big media companies talking about the suppression during that time. When our whistleblowers were trying to go after them, and they were trying to do a lot of things, but they were being stopped right at every entrance, right? No matter where they went with trying to convict them and go after Hunter Biden and his family, Joe and stuff. They they had a lot of corrupt people keeping them afloat. So
Did the research turn your stomach?
did the what?
Did the research turn your stomach? Did it make it turn?
Yes.
You got me.
Okay, good.
You got me.
It did. It is.
I trust your stomach.
Yes. Yeah. It is pretty. Think of Burisma. Think of Ukraine, China. And some other stuff. So.
I love it.
Yeah. I mean, I know that. I think who was the guy that just interviewed Hunter? It was what, Sean Ryan or something?
I think so.
Anyways, yeah, he just interviewed him on on a podcast and got a whole bunch of millions of views. But the guy who really did a lot of the research and found, his name's Marco Polo.
Mm-hmm.
He did that research for about 10 years, and he's doing something tomorrow at 1 o'clock on his Marco Polo. Look him up because he's like,
This is
yeah,
his real name?
yeah. So his real name is, I won't say his real name. No,
Okay. Marco Polo.
that's his law
Pseudonym.
firm. That's his law firm.
Okay.
But yeah, so he that's his law firm, but he is going to if you look him up on X or any of his socials, he's going to be doing a huge podcast just kind of correcting everything that Hunter Biden said, because of course he lied about a lot of things. And I mean, he did the research and came up with like a 600-page book on all this evidence that he gathered within like 10 years of his research. And it has like addresses, and it's all doxed, right? Addresses of like government officials in China and Ukraine and businesses and business partners and everyone. It's pretty crazy. So
I love it.
yeah. Yep.
Awesome.
So, but yes, money disrupted about the Federal Reserve. We are still working on it, but we plan on having it come out end of this month. So, and we'll
And
get
the
that date
reason-
to you.
The reason we
Thank
brought
you.
you up was because of your documentary, right from the start. Since this is the
Thank you.
XRP show, I thought it would be appropriate.
No, thank you so much. Thanks for having me, and really appreciate the support from everyone. And thank you, Dan. Really appreciate it. So always good to see you guys. Be the change, Rico.
You already know.
Blockchain Bully, good to see you, and thanks so much for watching it and supporting that. Thanks
Always.
for doing it.
Of course.
Have a good night.
All right, take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night.
All right, boys. It's been 3 hours. I love you guys. It is time for me to finish my dinner and then go to bed.
All right.
Thank
Good night,
you.
Change. Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you guys for having me up. I'll dismiss myself.
Rico, thank you for coming on.
You are.
Oop, I cut him out early.
Bully.
Caveman, you want to close this out,
I'm
brother?
so glad that wasn't on my live, so I don't have to download it.
Yeah, that's going to take up a terabyte.
You're gonna have.
But you know what will be really cool is the transcript will be, the subtitles from the YouTube video. The transcript will be accessible for anyone that wants to take it and regurgitate that into your favorite AI model. You will have every single thing that XRP has ever done at the tip of your fingertips, which is awesome. So thank you so much for that extensive deep dive and research. I really couldn't have done better myself, man. That was great.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful night. Guys, thank you for being here. It's 11:21, 162 people, 180 total, like at the highest, 305,000 likes. You guys rock. I'm excited for Canton Network next week. Let's do it. And I hope that this enlightened you guys. Have a wonderful evening. We'll see you later. Bye, Billy.
Guys, throw a 1 in the chat if you enjoyed this episode. This was a fucking rock star show. It is recorded. I will post it to my YouTube channel. You can find all the other Utility Unlocked episodes on there as well. The link is in my bio. I will have that uploaded this week. In the meantime, guys, Canton Network next Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern. We're looking forward to that. Rico will join us as a guest. Yeah, this was an absolutely crazy one. It was really nice to just sit back, and I learned a lot. Don't get me wrong. I researched this a lot, but these guys are rock stars. They knocked it out of the park. Hopefully, you guys learned at least one thing new. I know it was a lot of information and almost impossible to absorb all of that. So hopefully, the YouTube will help you guys as well. If you do want to learn it a little bit better. Download the transcript. You can throw that into your favorite AI model and ask it questions if you have questions about the partnerships. But this was absolutely insane. Undeniable. Guys, 300,000 likes. Damn, that's sick. 46 new subscribers. 150 people in here. Thank you guys so much for being here and supporting me, Be the Change, Caveman, and this show. We honestly believe that we are doing something very unique for you guys, and we are trying to, I guess, formulate the mindset and enable that critical thinking for you guys to become your own educated investors and decide for yourself whether or not you think that these assets are worth your investment, not just in your money, but in your time, as well as within your own intellect. Guys, my moderators, thank you so much. Ray Todd, Sarah, Brooke, and Brendan, thank you guys so much for maintaining this live and keeping all the scammers out of there. Everyone that donated, thank you so much. All of the subscribers, thank you guys so much. Everyone that commented, there's probably thousands of comments. Thank you guys so much for engaging within one another and giving us questions to answer. Hopefully you guys learned at least one thing new. This was a really cool episode. I was really glad that we did it. Next week, Canton, CC. In the meantime, guys, learn a little bit more about it. YouTube it, see what you guys can find. You guys hopefully will have some really good questions for us next week. Yeah, this was crazy. It'll be up on YouTube later this week. Guys, with that being said, what if it all works out?